Are we recording?
Yes.
All right, here we are on The Blind Man in Black. I am your host, Brian Snyder. And if you like the show, please rate, subscribe, or do whatever. Anything helps. Even send it to your enemies if you don't like it. All right, everybody. I'm delighted because I am here with model, actor, musician, nonfiction writer, and dear friend from seventh grade, Chris Manning. Welcome, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Is that
Happy to be
real
here.
like radio? That sounded like really like it reminded me of like Tom Leggett show. Do you remember that show?
No, I'm so sorry. I don't.
You really don't remember that show? It was so popular. It was on I
Ligas.
think it was on like K Rock or something, but it was like the Tom Leggett show to talk about the things you really care about. And it was basically about guys. It was trying to get basically Tom Leggett was trying to teach men how to lie to women to get laid.
Oh God. Wow, that's horrible. Isn't that
Yeah,
the
I
didn't they make a
remember
movie?
one of the shows I remember he talked about like so he suggested that men when they go on a date
Mm.
they say they're borrowing their friend's car, they usually drive a Ferrari or whatever, and then drive by a mansion that's being worked on in Beverly Hills and say that's my house, it's just getting worked on.
That's disgusting. You know what, men, we really are pigs. I don't know. That sounds like something a radio host, would say. Do you remember that movie Magnolia? Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah, it's one of my
Yeah.
favorites. Yeah, Paul Thomas
Yeah,
Anderson.
that was his whole thing, just how to get laid and by any means necessary. And I don't even think you could make that movie nowadays, or at least like not with that character. Not in the whole Me Too movement.
But the brilliant thing about that movie, I believe that was probably Tom Cruise's best performance,
Mm.
especially the scene because you had empathy for him because when he was with his father who was dying of cancer, you could feel that pain, like that anger, like he didn't want to cry, and it was a beautiful scene. I was moved by it.
Honestly, at that point in the movie, I was just like, this guy's just a schmuck. I was like, I'm glad his father's dead.
So anyway, I'm
It's a
sorry to get
movie.
off track. I want to put this in context for everybody. So one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation, Chris, is because you literally saved my life. And
Oh,
what I mean by that is, uh, when I came to Los Gatos in seventh grade, my mom and I had come from she married this guy that was pretty abusive. And we came to Los Gatos because she had work at Deluxe Check Printers in Campbell. And I was super fucking depressed. I was really, really depressed. And I could barely, I basically pretended to be sick all the time so I didn't have to go to school. And then I remember just, being in PE, walking in our green PE
old and
clothing.
green.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was and I just remember walking around the track and I was overweight. And then we kind of just kept pace, just walking while everybody else ran. And we just started talking. And I remember we were talking about like history of the world and Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, Mel Brooks stuff. And we just immediately connected. And we just that's how our friendship began.
I remember very well. Yeah, I think you were walking about like 10 feet in front of me, and I'm like, oh, the only other guy in this class who's just doesn't want to run or participate in team sports. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
think even
Meanwhile,
that was our like connection just right there.
yeah, and the gym teacher's like, Schneider, come on. Manning, let's go.
I know. As we just walk past, like he's like, "Come on, let's go, move it."
Right. And we
We're like,
just we just didn't give a shit. But
I'm
that's where
like,
we were at. And I think
yeah, it was fun.
yeah, that's where we all began. But yeah, I'm just immensely grateful for that because I was so fucking depressed and like I really if there was any time in my childhood that I ever thought about suicide, it was that time. And
Oh
because
wow.
I was just so fucking done with everything. And but
Oh,
I was grateful because you helped me to kind of enjoy living
oh.
and living there because I didn't know anybody. Like I moved from upstate New York and didn't know anybody, so I felt very lonely and it was such an odd place to be amongst so many wealthy people and yet not have anything. And you remember like my apartment, it was like the TV was on cinder blocks and when we first moved there.
I love that apartment. I
Yeah.
hung out there every day, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when you weren't there, you guys gave me the key. I thought that was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a
So
teenage kid to have a key to his own apartment, no.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty sweet. But anyway, but let's talk about you. Let's talk about where everything began, the genesis of Chris Manning. How did it all start? And we know how it started, but what was your
Okay.
early formative years like?
Okay. Well, I grew up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Um, Beautiful, just countryside. My parents decided they both lived in San Francisco, so they just decided they were done with the city life.
Hmm.
So they actually built a house up there, and where my mom still lives to this day. And so I grew up there, really just isolated though from like the rest of civilization, you could
Yeah,
say.
your house was like at the end of a long dirt road that had a gate on the front of it. So you had to like
Oh
have a
yeah,
special I don't know, keypad or what I don't know, I remember how you remote control or something to get in there.
yeah,
And
a
then it was
code.
just a long dirt road and you were like at the end of it and then like
Yeah,
there was a trail into the wilderness after that.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because I think when people hear like a gate, they think gated community, and it was not even that close. It wasn't that like of a tight knit community. It's literally once you got through this gate, you had to drive a mile and a half further down, like, yeah, this dirt road. Some of it was paved, but for the most part, you're just driving through the woods.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
then, yeah, at the end, you get to my house, and then beyond our house was just wilderness. And it's funny because I resented it all at the time. As a young kid, all you want to do is hang out with your friends at the 7-Eleven and just be able
Yeah.
to walk over to their house and just whatever. And so I just hated that. I honestly stayed indoors a lot of the time just playing Nintendo. um Now that I am my parents' age, or around that time, probably a little older now, I all I want to do is just go visit my mom. It's just such a retreat. you know?
Yeah, and that beautiful bay window that looks kind of overlooks a kind of a valley and a
Oh yeah,
mountainside. That's
oh,
really
it's
beautiful.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I see why they moved up there. You know what I mean? Like, I guess
Yeah.
having lived in Los Angeles and San Francisco for probably a good 20 years now, I'm just like, I love it. It's nice. I like the city, but I'm ready. I think now that we have a family, or I have a family, my wife and I, we're kind of ready for that, like, more sedate, you know,
Right.
old, laid back, lifestyle. So yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing, I should mention I should also mention we tried this interview once and then we had some massive technical problems and but it was awesome because your newborn daughter Julia was there.
Hmm.
And I wanted to apologize because I I didn't I felt like I didn't offer proper congratulations on becoming a father and welcoming Julia into the world because I know it was a long time coming, right?
Yes, yes. As a 42-year-old who, she's not even a year old, so you can do the math. But
Right.
yeah, we waited a long time. We basically waited as long as we possibly could to
Right.
have a kid. And it was just this constant. Honestly, at first we pretty much made up our minds that we did not want children. And I think then, but as time, marches on, you start thinking, well, maybe, I don't know, I could see myself as a father. And then, of course, like, just Gina hit that biological brick wall, and we just really had to just, ante up and just be like, are we doing this or not? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
and honestly, we were fortunate. It wasn't difficult. I think we we were trying for, well, about 6, 7 months. Just and then just one day it happened, and here we are, and she's perfectly healthy, and
Well,
the best feeling.
congratulations, man. I am so
Thank
happy for
you.
you and Gina and your family. That's a
Thank you.
gift.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're
Appreciate that.
welcome.
I wish
Let's
she could
get
be here today, but she was
well,
10
I mean
months old are terrorizers.
it was actually I really enjoyed our last conversation and I was so happy even just hearing her and it was really awesome. And then the story about everything was just awesome. I mean, it was just like your wife was dealing with blood. I don't know. She murdered
Oh,
somebody. I don't remember what
it
happened.
was her medical assistant basically just blew it all up, and there was blood all over this hospital floor. Whatever. It's I don't want to go into detail, but yeah, that was a train wreck. That interview was just like,
And you're like trying to hold everything together. The internet's going,
oh my
everything's
god.
falling apart.
Oh yeah.
But we're back. We're back.
Here we are. Yeah.
So let's get back to your childhood. Is there anything that you remember where you're like, ah, this was something, a milestone that like made me who I am today?
Wow. There's probably been a few of those. Um, from my childhood.
Well,
Um,
okay, you did
I
mention last time there was some racism. Let's get into that a little bit.
Sure, sure. Yeah, growing up, I went to, Fisher Middle School and then on to Los Gatos High School. See, what's funny is I went to middle school in the mountains, Santa Cruz Mountains. So it was such like an isolated community. There really wasn't, honestly, I mean, kids that age don't even really understand racism at
Yeah.
that point. You know what I mean? They're too young. They just want to play. So it's perfect, but once I moved into junior high, and that was down in, the valley, and, we were, it was just funny because I would hear kids like just spout out like, racial epithets as if it was nothing, and me being half black, I still look, you know, I could pass for Caucasian, I think, and I think that's what happened. They would say these things around me, not knowing that my father was black, and it really, well, it kind of opened my eyes just to like how ugly this world can be. And then on into high school. High school is better because you know kids are a little more grown up. They're a little more open minded, but I still felt it. I still heard it there as well. And then there were times when it was actually directed at me, and I think honestly, I just confused kids. They were like, "So you don't look black, but you don't look completely white," and then they'd be like, "What are you?" And it just get ugly. Um,
Right, right. I remember, and tell me if I like, and I'll admit, I'm white, so like Martin Luther King said, uh, that I was funny. I had to actually state that I'm white. Like if it's pretty obvious.
yeah, we could tell, yeah.
But Martin Luther King said that white people are inherently racist, and it's because of the system that we're born into. And then I kind of think, okay, when we met, I do remember kind of having a conversation where I was like, so what is your, I don't think I said ethnic identity or race or something like that, but I'm like, what's going on? And I felt like you wouldn't tell me, like you were making me guess. And
I could
then
see that.
was that disturbing in any way?
Sure, sure. I don't remember that specific incident, but that doesn't surprise me. I think it was
Because
almost like I was afraid. I probably was just like afraid because I mean, Los Gatos High School, where we went to school, it was like 99% white. I think there was
yeah,
only one other kid who was black, and I felt bad for him. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I was like, wow, he probably gets it like every day,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. But yeah, no, that makes sense. It was probably like a trust issue. Like I don't know this guy well enough. I hope he's not like racist. You know what I mean?
Right,
You
right.
know.
So it did bother you. It was what you're saying.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. We it's funny we didn't talk about it. Like and I I deeply apologize for my ignorance and you know, not knowing that.
Oh, it's okay. You know, hey, why would you? Like if all you were doing was just asking, like harmlessly, like, like, oh, what's your background? That's fine. I mean, I would get like kids who are just like challenging, you know what I mean? Like just really like bullies, basically,
Right.
and so yeah, honestly though, like as much as I loved high school and I loved our group of friends, and I really, you and I, like we were best friends throughout junior high and high school, but eventually we kind of found our niches, and I think you went off with like the theater kids, and I was hanging out with like the music kids, and but we all still, remained good friends. But I
Yeah,
I honestly couldn't wait to get to college.
no, no, I know, I remember that. But I want to stay on this just a little bit because I remember because you were like going through like I remember you read Malcolm X,
Oh yeah.
and that
Oh,
was in high school,
great
right?
book. Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
remember you called me, you go white devil. Like I remember that like you would call me white devil.
Yeah, see, yeah, no, we got into it. It was fun. We I was well, that was probably one of my eye-opening moments just reading that book. It's a
Right.
brilliant book. I don't know if
Yeah.
you ever get a chance, you should read
I
it.
did. I believe I got into parts of it. I don't remember all of it, but I had it in my collection of stuff,
Oh,
you
okay.
know.
I feel
It-
bad. I think I stole it from the library, the school library. I think I
right.
still have it.
So did your father prepare you for the racism? Did he say like, son, like this is what you're gonna have to deal with?
No, no, not at all. My dad wasn't that type. He wasn't the type to sit me down and give me any type of life lesson whatsoever.
Right.
Um, he was a sweet man. I still love him, but he was not, he was like that old school type dad where you just don't talk about feelings or emotions. Or, you know what I mean? He was
Yeah.
just, I think he was of the mindset that, he's just like, I go to work every day, I provide for the family, I do what's expected of me as the breadwinner, and on the weekends I just want to be left alone and read the paper and watch my ball game.
Right.
you know.
And he worked,
So
and you told me last time because I thought he'd work for Amtrak, but he worked for Southern Pacific.
correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So yeah, he was just an old school kind of just go to work, get off work, hang out with the fellas at the bar. He was probably the norm of whatever, from Cheers. Like he would have been the norm. I could imagine.
Yeah, didn't he like felt like you and I went to either a blues bar that he went to or like he had recommended that we go there or something to listen to blues. Is that do you
Probably.
remember that?
I don't. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think you and I ever went. We were too young at the time. But
No, I think we went I just have this memory of you and I being in like a bar that had blues and it was like I don't know. Maybe it's a dream. Yeah, I don't remember, but
hmm,
I just I don't know. I have that memory, but so yeah. And speaking of that, I remember because your father did work for the railroad. He was able to get us tickets to go on the train down to Disneyland, and we went on the train, and you were listening to Nirvana the entire way. And so this is like seventh or eighth grade. It was somewhere around there and I
mhm.
remember passing the prison where they announced that Marlon Brando's son was there. And yeah, and it was kind of felt like it was around like I think the had the lingering effects of the Rodney King beating was like kind of reverberating during that time and like uh
Mm.
you know yeah, I have a very vivid memory of that. And then I remember us going to Disneyland and you spilling a drink on your shirt and I had a photo of it. You should have the photo of it because I remember that. And then
Oh,
you had to borrow one of my shirts,
okay.
one of my
I
weird workout shirts. Remember
I
that?
was going to say, was it one of those like big ones where like it kind of came down to my knees?
Well,
Like,
I was overweight, so it would have, and you were very thin, so it would have definitely been larger on you. But it was like I had this series of like workout shirts with weird workout like slogans on it, and I think I didn't. I remember you weren't happy with having to wear it. but
Well, honestly, like every kid that age, because we were probably what, 13 at the time.
yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
That was probably my most self-conscious period in my
Hmm.
entire life. And I know I'm not alone. That's just that
Right.
age. But yeah, so anything that at least I thought looked uncool was just, mortifying. You know what I mean? Like I just wanted to crawl under a rock and hide. You know what I mean? Now that
Yeah.
said, some of the outfits that I wore to school that I thought were really cool, I look back on and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking?
No,
Like
no,
neon, pink, blue, short shorts.
right. That was definitely junior high. And I remember you one time we were walking down your road, and I don't remember why we were walking down your road. You like hiked up your shorts like all the way up, like they were like pulling your balls together. And then do you remember that?
Oh yeah,
And you
no,
were
I'm
like
sure.
chasing me.
Yeah, yeah, no. I did anything I could to make you feel uncomfortable. I think
I
that was
appreciate that. I
my
appreciate it.
modus operandi.
Yeah, I probably deserved it. But that's funny that you chose a friend that was so nerdy and overweight, and yet you had that, I mean, I was definitely probably embarrassing sometimes because of that. But
No, not at all. You and I were like, yeah, no, we were pretty inseparable. That's why that's the funny thing is you mentioned, all these things happening going on around us during that time, the Rodney King beatings, like the riots, you know, just world events. But I remember you and I just kind of were like living in our own little world. Like, we'd hang out as soon as our classes were done, we'd hang out, go to lunch, we'd walk to your house from school,
yeah.
because I lived up in the mountains. We obviously weren't going to go to my house. And we would just hang out and watch movies like for a few hours. And no, it was just kind of like the two of us against the world. And we were like,
I,
what? We were like the Romy and Michelle's high school reunion. Do you remember
yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean, it was definitely a buddy movie for sure for a long time. And yeah, I mean, like I said, you saved me, man. Like I really I don't know if we had not met, I don't know what would happen because I was not connecting with anybody. And
Wow.
through our love for Mel Brooks movies, that's kind of what, got me out of my depression. And I have you to thank
Oh,
for that. So,
well, thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
Well, hey, same goes to you. Honestly, I think and you mentioned milestones, I could say that was one. Just when we met, when we just kind of started, we just hit it off and just became best friends. But I would say like the next 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then you were getting super into Metallica. You started playing guitar, and I remember that when you started out, and you start just kind of, and then you became very very good at it. And I
That was
remember
pretty
I
cool.
remember that
Fun.
box set of Metallica that looked like a steel like trunk.
Hmm.
Do you remember
Right.
that?
Like a roadie's like
Yeah.
suitcase kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
my wife had that as well. That was really a popular box set, and I
Oh, funny.
remember that up by your Sega Genesis. It was like right
Oh,
next.
yeah. I wonder if that's a collector's. I think you can. Like, I should have kept that. You know what I mean? That box set.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I wasn't into Metallica at the time, but I was like, that's a cool box set, you know.
Yeah. VHS tapes and everything.
Or VHS tapes in there.
It had slots for VHS tapes for like their concerts.
Right, right.
Oh my God, I sound old. But yeah, no, it was cool. I'm glad. That's funny that your wife had that as well.
Yeah, I mean, she worked at Tower and she was super punk rock, and so that, she was into all that stuff. So like, yeah,
She
and
was
then
in the Slayer video, of course. Yeah.
I remember in seventh grade we met. That remember the game Pit Fighter?
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
had that on Sega Genesis, I think. And then
Yes. Yes.
we played it a lot. And then we met one of the characters, like did like a kind of street smarts, like he was doing, kind of it was to kind of promote like working out and then like just kind of being, morally aware, I guess. And
Yeah.
then I don't know what it was,
He
but
was our motivational speaker in our
yeah,
high school.
that's what I was looking for. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he was our
And then
Tony
we
Robbins.
like walked him to his car at the end.
Yeah, well, we were so like, starstruck, which is just shows how like
What was his character's name?
oh God, I don't know. That's too much. I
Okay,
mean,
okay.
yeah,
Sorry,
I
sorry.
no, but I do remember he was in Lionheart. It's funny in both Pit Fighter and Lionheart, he's like the first guy, you know what I mean? That like where he's like the first guy you face off, against in Pit Fighter. So
Hmm.
of course he's like the easiest guy to defeat. And
Right.
then in Lionheart with Jean-Claude Van Damme,
Hmm.
he was the first guy that Jean-Claude Van Damme faced off against, and he was also very easily beaten in that movie. And I remember he complained about that while we were walking into his car. He's like, "Man, why do I always got to be the one gets his ass kicked?"
Right. Right. Yeah.
I'm like,
That's
"You're still our hero."
but
I
yeah, I mean
remember.
there were a lot of
Wait, wait,
moments.
let me just finish. What was funny? Talk about like kind of a life lesson. I thought he would be when we walked into his car. I remember we were carrying his stuff, and like
Mm,
I remember seeing what kind of car he drove, and I thought he would be like uber famous and uber
right.
rich, and like it was a pretty beat up like Oldsmobile, you know what I mean? And
Yeah, now that I think about it, it
that was
kind of
eye opening.
reminded me of like the wrestler.
Yeah. Oh, that's sad, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean, right? Am I right? It was kind of like Mickey Rourke's character, like just,
making the rounds. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
true. That kind of does remind me of that now.
yeah, it's
Hopefully
sad.
he's still alive. I think he was a good guy.
Yeah, yeah, he was very compassionate. I remember that.
Yeah.
So so what happened, like I remember in high school, and if there's anything like I'm missing, like the formative, I want I because I think it's important. Is there anything that happened like in that time period that we met that you want to mention that formed who you are?
Um, wow. I just feel like everything, every situation, every moment informs who you are, or forms who you are. And it's one it's hard to pick one thing over another. I mean, obviously there's the big ones like prom, losing your virginity, just the big milestones, getting my license. That was pretty huge. That was
Yeah.
probably, yeah, I mean, yeah, honestly, losing my virginity was just a relief. I was just so happy to get that over with. I mean, I was just like, oh, thank God. Like, there was a certain point I thought that I would never have sex in my whole life. You know, like,
Yeah, I mean that was the issue is we were kind of the outcast and we were really trying to date and we couldn't make it happen and you probably lost your virginity before I did.
no, no,
Are you
no, no, I
sure
did
about
not.
that? Because I
Yeah,
didn't
I'm
lose it until
positive.
the end of high school. So,
Neither did I.
okay.
So,
So,
yeah,
okay.
no, yeah, I remember once you got a girlfriend, like a steady girlfriend, and I think you just told me, like, you know what I mean? And I was really upset because I think when you told me, you were doing it in such a gentlemanly way, like, oh, like, gentlemen, do not tell, or whatever. Like, and I was just like, screw you, man. Like, I know you. You're not like this noble, honorable guy. Like,
I know. I mean,
you're just a
I was probably
twisted
the
pervert
deviant.
just like me.
I was the deviant because I was the one when we went to Disneyland in seventh grade. I immediately zoomed in on the LA Express,
Yeah.
sex magazines across from our hotel. And like, we got to go get those. And they were
Yeah.
in those little, you put in a quarter and it, like a newspaper stand
Oh yeah.
thing.
And we just took them all. Yeah. We
Yeah.
put in one quarter and just took a huge stack of just free porn.
Right.
Because they didn't have that was in you're right, it was in LA. So they didn't have that stuff in Los Gatos where, it was just very just family
Yeah.
oriented. So that was like really this was before the internet, by the way. For those who are listening, this was so really, really as a kid, you had to really look for porn wherever you could find it.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't have access to it at all. Like it was like the Patton Oswalt joke. It was you had to look under a bridge to find a scrap of porn.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You were just lucky if you saw a boob. You're just like, if I could find one more, I could put them together and maybe make a rack. And then we'll have a full rack. No
Yeah.
body, just the rack.
And yeah, I exposed you to was I no, I wasn't the first because you had that I remember you had that Joy of Sex book.
Oh yeah, that
That
was a
like
time.
1975 Joy of Sex book that was just like illustrations.
Yeah, that was hot, man. That was those were. I would wish I could meet the guy who illustrated that book and just thank him because it was so realistic. I was just like, wow, it was, like it was just like this is sex. These are all the positions, and here I'm going to draw them in absolute graphic detail. It was great.
Yeah, I
I think
remember that. I remember like you
yeah.
brought that, you're like, check this out. And like, yeah. So yeah, we were
Oh,
both
okay.
deviants.
Yeah. So we traded porn. It was
Yeah,
great. You introduced me to AliExpress. I introduced you. This sounds weird. I introduced you to the joy of sex.
you did. You did.
That's-
And yeah, opens up a lot of questions for those listening and watching.
right. I
That
hope
statement.
everyone's listening to
I
the rest of the
introduced you to
interview.
the joy of sex.
Exactly. Yeah. I hope you listened to the previous 55 minutes of our conversation. Um, yeah, no, but so going back though, honestly, big milestone for me was just getting my license because all of a sudden, yeah, I wasn't stuck up in the boondocks, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Waiting for my mom to give me a ride down to the valley so I could hang out with friends. As soon as I got that car, man, I was just gone. I
Yeah.
just hung out with friends. I slept on their couches because, I just didn't feel like making the half-hour drive to my own
Yeah.
home every night, and
And you
that
had
was probably that was
a
my
nice
adult.
Honda Civic.
Yeah, it was a black Honda Civic, which we all nicknamed the Panther.
Right.
And yeah, that was like my key to independence right there.
Yeah. And I
Hmm.
had my gold grandma Subaru.
I remember that.
Remember
Yeah,
that? Yeah, that was
yeah.
embarrassing.
No, that was great.
No,
Just
I
a
mean, it was, I
car
mean,
is just
the seats
great.
were like ripped up and like it just like the brakes squealed every time I came to a stop. It go, whoop, 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 whoop.
I remember that. I think I remember having friends who just, we all had quirks, weird quirks in our cars. Like, I think I had a friend who's just, his suspension, there was something wrong with his suspension. So the back of his car was just literally was 2 inches from the ground, you know?
Right,
And it looked like he was driving some kind of like lowrider with like, big hydraulics, but it was like a cheap Subaru. Like, so,
right.
that's what you get when your parents give you secondhand cars.
True, true. And I thought you were going to mention Nate because the last time we tried this conversation, Nate came up like every 5 minutes.
I know. That's what I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to avoid. I don't even want to mention
Was it
names
him?
because
Was it Nate? You just didn't say
no,
his
no, no.
name?
It was Alex. It was
Oh,
Alex.
okay, okay.
Remember my Russian friend? Yeah.
Right, right. Who's
Well,
now what, a computer programmer or something?
no, he actually works. I want to say he's a CEO of his own company. It's called
Jesus.
it's called Sunflower. And what they do is they actually design drones for home security. So
Really?
essentially, yeah. So like, I guess you plant these what are called like these sensors around your house,
And then
and
they take off and
if they sense
attack people?
movement or activity, then they buzz around, and I guess they alert you on your phone, and then they can tell you who it is, and they can buzz around you.
So this is basically for like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and things like that. The
Well, right now it is. I know he's definitely targeting more like the wealthy,
right,
who
right.
just being into like that kind of thing. But I know he's definitely trying to bring the cost down and obviously introduce it like to a more uh, middle of the road
Right,
audience, I guess you'd say.
right.
But yeah, no, he's doing well. I'm actually going up to see him next weekend. Him and a bunch of people, or a bunch, some high
Nate.
school friends. Nate will probably be there. I don't doubt it.
Tell everybody I said hello.
I will do that. I'll do
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you and introducing you to Julia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Let's definitely connect. But
Yeah.
let's kind of discuss some stuff that we haven't discussed because we got a
Sure.
lot to cover in a little
Sure.
amount of time. So, one of the things I want to mention is you were there like in the beginning when I really started to lose my eyesight. And I remember I remember the first time that I felt super embarrassed and like scared, and I was like, "This is odd." Is we were at Disneyland and we were just about to get seated for Pirates of the Caribbean, and I don't know what I did, but I just started to like sit down, and I was like almost sat on like a toddler.
Oh,
Remember
well,
that?
you almost did, which was,
Yeah,
I don't
and I
know,
was like,
somehow either I stopped you or someone stopped you. Maybe the
I think you
parents
stopped
stopped
me.
you.
You're like, "Dude,
Okay.
you're gonna sit on that kid," or something like that,
Yeah.
and yeah, I remember that. You were there at the beginning of my vision loss.
Yeah. No, I do remember. I think at that point it was just night blindness.
Yeah.
So, you just couldn't drive at a certain point. It wasn't that bad. Like you could drive probably what up until like 6 o'clock, when it's just, you
No,
know.
no, no. I mean, I drove after the sun went down. I
Oh.
mean, for a long time. It was just I needed illumination. I needed like as long as I had a flashlight or headlights, I was fine. Like I
Hmm.
used to drive up to your house and Mike's house. I didn't have any issues until
Yeah.
probably about 2006 with driving after the sun went
Oh.
down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, you handled it really well though. Like
That was
you
because I
took
was
it,
in denial.
you were in denial.
Yeah,
It's okay. I probably
absolutely.
would be too.
Well, there was a lot of things going on there. There was, first of all, like I didn't know, and I don't think you knew this. I don't think I've ever told you this story, but I didn't know I had Usher syndrome, which is the condition that causes my blindness and deafness. I didn't know I had it until my first year at Cal Arts. What happened is my mom, I had hearing loss. I knew that, but it was kind of corrected with hearing devices. And then my mom would say, I'd say, I have difficulty seeing in low lighting. And she said, "Oh, a lot of people have that. Don't worry about that." And she didn't tell me until like I had to go to an optometrist. And anyway, I've told the story a lot, so I'm not going to mention it again. But basically, when I went to the optometrist, they said, "You have something seriously wrong with your eyes." And then when I went home for the summer, um, my mom and my brother were there, and they told me that I had Usher syndrome, and there was no cure, and that it was
Hmm.
going to be progressive, and I would go blind.
Hmm. I wonder. I remember you did tell us this when we visited you last, but I still don't understand why they wouldn't tell you. You know, just to
Well,
at
my
least
mom,
prepare
my
you.
well, first of all, my father, he did not want to talk about it. He even told my mom that don't tell his mom, my grandmother, and he didn't want anybody to know about it. And then my mother, we moved to upstate New York, and that was, she married someone who was abusive, and so she thought that it was best that when we moved to Los Gatos that I kind of get a break from trauma. And
Hmm.
so she didn't want me to know about it, right? She just kind of wanted me to enjoy life, which was, I mean, in essence, that time period was really a beautiful time period because it was
Hmm.
safe, and like there was even though there really is no security in this world, it felt like a sense of safety and security living
Hmm.
there.
Sure.
And so yeah, it achieved that for sure, but then it was also startling, to realize that I had a disease that was degenerative, that was going to completely change how I live my life. So
Hmm.
she did the best that she could with what, support she had. She didn't have the support of my father. And so she did what she could. And I understand that,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. And I'm sorry if I'm digging too deep.
No,
But
ask me any. This is really my Gandhian experiment in truth. I mean,
okay.
I'm not equating myself to Gandhi in any way whatsoever. I'm not that at all. But my point is that I'm trying to be as truthful as I can possibly be in this situation here on this podcast.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Do
Sure.
you do you wish that she had told you earlier? Or are you just
Well, I mean, yes, and but I don't know. I mean, I think the truth is always the best. The best is always. But um, I think I know that she was a single mom trying to make it work, and we didn't have a lot of money, and so um, I think, and when it's hard to say. It's really
Mhm.
hard to say. The only thing I wish I would have done, and I've said this a lot of times on this show, is that I didn't have I needed to talk to more people that were blind. I also needed to talk with people with disabilities, and because I could have done, I have what I have the most regret is about the decisions I've made. Like when I went into acting and I was at Cal Arts, I stopped acting because I thought I couldn't do it, and or at least the way I wanted to do it. And then and that's why I went into directing for theater, and then I went into the film industry because I just kept changing rather than just doing what I loved and doing it differently than everybody else. And so I have a lot of regret about that because what I did was like, I don't know. I heard this from a lot of people. Do it for as long as you can, rather than you can still do it, just do it differently. And
Hmm.
so I have a lot of regret on about the decisions I made.
Hmm.
So
Or well, it sounds like you did receive some shitty advice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, of course, you just you do it. You just for as long as you want, you just do it differently. But honestly, you really took to directing. So I don't think that was such a bad decision to shift gears because you seem to really take that on, moving from acting into directing. You're a great actor too. But
thank
I
you.
remember, the plays you were directing, like you really came into your own, and I was impressed. I was like, it was kind of a different side of you where like, you and I, like, we were kind of like just these school kids who are just kind of like trying to see our way explore and find out things about life. But I feel like once you started directing, it seemed like you kind of really took charge, like just you know um of these productions, and then it felt like also of your life. You're like kind of like, oh, I can do this, I can do anything.
Yeah.
Like I would never have the guts to do that, to take on a directing a play. you know
Well, thank you.
Even a
And
community
so,
play, like
did I hear you correctly? You said I took on some shitty advice.
Mm. Well, when you say that people were telling you do it as long as you can,
Right.
you know what I mean? I'm like, well, that is terrible advice. You can do it as long as you want. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
it was, and but it was an ableist kind of thinking. It was a very able-bodied thing that I had ingrained from our society. It's like racism, ableism, the same fucking thing. I felt that I had if the only way I could do it was a very specific way, which was like because a part of my thinking was, oh, when am I going to just play fucking blind characters my whole life? But the truth is, there's a lot of variety to blind characters, and screenwriters or directors or whatever when they or casting directors, they could cast blind people in any role. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? To some degree, most roles. I mean, not like a Top Gun, type
Right.
situation, fighter pilot, but like, although that would be interesting. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of roles that it may not say that the person's blind, but that you could put a blind actor in that role. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So yeah, so it's been a fucking journey, and it's been but I do have a lot of regret about not pursuing acting and comedy, and this is kind of my way of mitigating that. Doing this
Hmm.
podcast, doing the show is trying to get back, finding my creative self again. So,
I
but let's get
completely
off me and
understand.
get back to you because this
I
is
like
about.
talking about you.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
But okay.
But um but yeah, so there were some things that I'm trying not to like recap what we did last time, but there were some great things that came up last time. Like, one of the things you started playing guitar, and then through that you met Metallica. You like hung out with them in a recording session.
No, it was actually a rehearsal. For they had this. They're getting ready to go on this big world tour, and yeah, I was probably 16 at the time. I had just gotten my license. I wanted to mention this as a milestone, but I kind of thought it was sounded too nerdy. but, um,
We mean
but yeah,
Metallica,
well, when I was 16, I was part of their fan club,
right?
and I so being part of the fan club, there. I guess they have a rehearsal studio in San Rafael.
Hmm.
And so they go there to rehearse, get, ready for whatever tours they go out on. So I guess they were just calling members of the fan club who lived in the area and just were, inviting them to go join them for a rehearsal. And so I was just ecstatic when I got that call. I, of course, thought it was a joke. And then when I
Hmm.
found out it was real, I drove up there. It's funny, I actually went with my mom. It's actually a really fond memory between us both.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. She still talks about it. She's like, I had
Aw.
too much fun. Thank you for having me.
Was this like when you were around 13, 14, something like that?
No, no, I was 16.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no, 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 no. You're right, because I couldn't drive, so
Right.
I needed her to drive me.
Right.
So I must have been like 14 or 15. You're right.
Right.
But regardless, like, so it was just me, my mom, and about 10 or 15 other people in this small rehearsal studio, just watching Metallica play a full show, played like new songs that no one had ever heard yet, unreleased songs. And no, it was great. I was just over the moon. I mean, this was just kind of like meeting your idols. It was meeting my idols.
So it
And
was like, was it surreal? Like we were like, is this a dream? Did you say, can I
yeah,
touch
yeah.
you, Lars, or
No, no, no. I mean,
oh,
I was in awe for sure, for
right,
sure. But no, I was just so, it was almost like I knew them. I felt like I knew them so well through their music that I felt like I knew them personally,
right,
if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I had watched the concert DVDs, the documentaries. So it was just kind of like meeting, members of a family that, you know what I mean, that I hadn't seen or never met before.
right,
So
right.
no, it was great. I still love it, and honestly, now I just love the fact that my mom still loves to talk about that. That she gets a kick out of it.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, that's wonderful. I mean, Lois, she was so supportive and wanted you to be who you were, really. I remember she just loved kind of watching you develop and grow. I remember that, and
Yeah,
she'd always
yeah,
like kind of challenge, like kind of like, status quo thinking and like, she was pretty progressive. I remember that.
yeah, yeah. No, she still has that mentality of she's very, how do I say this? Op- she's opinionated without being overtly
Judgmental.
uh yeah, I want to say like she wasn't preachy. She didn't try to
Right.
like, preach her views or push her views on anyone,
Yeah.
but she wasn't afraid of letting her views be known,
Yeah.
if that makes sense, so
Mm.
I was grateful for that. I grew up in a very liberal, open-minded household. um they never pushed any religion on me. I didn't even really, I knew that my parents weren't religious, but I also appreciated the fact that they didn't try to push those non-religious views on me.
Right.
When I say that, I guess that's pretty easy. If you don't have a religion, it's pretty easy not to push your non-religious views on someone.
I think that was the time that I first heard the word agnostic.
Ah, okay. Is that how she identified back then?
I don't think she identified. I think that she said, I just remember her talking about, being, I don't remember her saying, I just remember hearing the word and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's interesting. Because
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't heard that. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah. Huh.
yeah,
Yeah. No, it would make sense if it came from her, But honestly, now I'm pretty sure she's just identifies as an atheist,
right,
you know.
right,
So, or a secular uh humanism. That's basically like she's a secular humanist. Thank you.
right,
That's the word I'm looking for.
right,
Which I guess that's how I identify as well. It's like I'm an atheist, but it's one of those things where you're like, well, I can't absolutely positively say that there is no God,
right,
but I'm pretty sure 99.9% that there isn't one. And that's just
right.
me. I don't want to offend anyone, but that's just what how I see the world. And
Yeah.
then I really think that, like, and then going back to the whole secular humanism thing, I love that idea that we need to look to ourselves as, as species, and as far as solving our problems, instead of waiting for some, great God up in the sky to, fix our problems for us. Like, we need to take responsibility, you know,
Yeah.
be kind to one another, because that's a humane thing to do. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah,
So now
absolutely.
I'm preaching. See, maybe my mom did preach a lot. I don't know.
That's okay. I mean,
Rubbed off
preaching
on me.
kindness is, I think, important. I mean, because I don't think it's too controversial to say be kind to each other, you know?
That's a good point. I know.
So I don't think that's, I mean, even across all of the religion, there is a sense of preaching compassion and kindness. So,
Hmm.
um, you know, um, yeah, I think we can unite on that,
That's true. Okay. Yeah, I'm all right. I guess I can preach then.
Another word I remember hearing for the first time, uh, I don't know how it came up. I just remember we were in the back of your mom's car. She was driving. I don't know why it felt like we were both in the back seat, which is odd. But I remember something about somebody. Maybe I was saying somebody called me chubby or something like that, and your mom said, "Oh, you're not chubby. You're just portly."
Yes. Yeah, I remember that. And
And then
I
I
got a
was
kick
like,
out of that.
"Portly," and then you're like, "Portly."
He's
And
portly.
I was like, yeah, it does kind of sound like a ship.
Portly. He's just portly. That I'm
The
surprised she
portly
didn't.
fellow.
I'm surprised she didn't say you were big boned. That
No, no.
he's just big boned.
No, portly, I think was better because it sounded even larger than being chubby, which I was like, is that really a compliment?
It
And I
kind
was
of sounds
like,
like Augustus Gloop.
right, right, from Willy Wonka.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But
Well, that was
please
my
give my
mom.
best to Lois. I miss
Sure.
her, and tell her that I think about her often, and I hope that she is doing well.
Oh, I will be sure to tell her that.
Thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you. So let's get into I do want to mention that our one because we've had some friendship divorces, and I think everybody goes through that from time to time. And I remember the first one was at the end of high school, and I remember what happened was is you were really getting proficient with playing your guitar, and you asked me because I had been in musical theater and I was singing at the time. You had asked me to sing a Danzig song, "I'm the One." Is that right?
Yes.
And then I think you also wanted me to sing "Caravan" by Black Sabbath, right?
Right. Planet Caravan by Black
Right.
Sabbath. Correct.
A-
Both kind of
And
crooning songs by heavy metal artists. Yeah.
right, which was a good choice because I do remember when we were rehearsing, you were like, "Dude, you sound too much like Frank Sinatra. You got to loosen up." And I was like, "Fuck." And and then I remember like right around the audition, it was for like a kind of variety show at high school at the end of our last year, and I remember I started to kind of feel sick, and then I'm like, I remember you came over and I'm, dude, I don't know if I can do it. I don't feel very well. And then you got super pissed, and I remember like my girlfriend was there at the time, and you're like, you're just gonna fucking hang out with her or something like that, and like, and I was like,
I
we
said
got
that in
into.
front of her.
I remember something like you got super upset, and then you ended up kicking the door, and like I remember the dent was there for years because I this was in high school. And I remember coming home from even college and graduate school, and I'm like, that dent's still there. I remember that day, and
Yeah.
but I wanted to tell you for the record, because this is a confession. Is I think I mean I did not feel well. I did have kind of a sore throat, but I think what it really was is I was really scared of failing with those songs because I don't know. I felt like I would embarrass you, and I don't know. I just felt like I was scared, and that's what that was really about.
Oh, well, I mean, that's quite all right. That's, it's understandable. We were getting up in front of all these people. And it's funny, that's the only time I actually felt semi comfortable being up being in front of people is just when I was just playing a guitar,
Right.
and honestly, if I actually had to sing, that may be a different story, because that's a little closer
Right.
to just public speaking. I don't know. So, but I'm surprised because you were so, like I said, you were acting, you were directing. I thought this was just kind of another aspect of that. But
Well, I mean, it was to some degree, but it was unfamiliar, like doing like, I guess they'd be rock ballads, kind of.
yeah, yeah,
Is
I guess
is
they'd
that
be
how you just?
considered ballads. Yeah, soulful rock ballads, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the one was more blues kind of
Yeah,
based, but
that's
like
it's a great
anyway,
song.
I think I was unfamiliar with it, and I think that I was doing musical theater, so it was a very different type of thing, and it was also I wasn't I was so obsessed with wanting to be Frank Sinatra, just to be closer to my father at that time, because to get his attention. And
Mhm.
so I think that was like first and foremost, and then so like doing but it was all I'm saying, it was fear based,
Oh,
and I wanted you to know the truth behind that, because I although I was sick, it was really, I think, about fear.
that's okay. You know what? You might have been actually sick because of fear. I mean,
Mm,
you I mean, if you're just afraid. I mean, everyone in high school is afraid at some point, especially when you're
yeah.
performing or getting ready to perform. Um, so perfectly understandable.
But
Um,
I'll tell you, I do regret that I didn't do it, because I really, it was an opportunity to do something different, and like, I think we would have had fun, and I think we wouldn't have had a friendship divorce if that would have, um, things would have went differently, because we didn't. I don't think we talked to each other for at least. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we didn't really talk when I was in undergrad, or when you were at San Francisco State University.
Probably not. Probably not. But I think, yeah, once we both went off to different colleges, I think that maybe that probably would have happened anyways. Not necessarily the whole friendship divorce, but just, maybe losing touch. Um, Honestly, I can tell you, and maybe this is something I should confess and apologize for, was that it really, I wasn't upset so much that you were basically telling me that you couldn't play these songs with me in this high school talent show, which seemed
Mhm.
so important at the time.
Right.
But I think I was more upset because it was almost like um, our losing. I felt like we were losing touch with one another even before that, and I think it was all coming, boiling to a head where you were actually hanging out with your girlfriend. You had a girlfriend,
Yeah.
and and you were doing the whole theater thing, and you kind of gravitated towards your theater buddies, and yeah, I was gravitating towards more like, my friends who are like into music and, rock and metal and that kind of thing. And so I think I was just upset that I was upset at you. And it wasn't because you didn't want to play the songs. I was just upset because, I think I just wanted to keep you to myself,
Hmm.
like, and so, like, yeah, I was just like, well, I never see you from, hanging out with this girl. How dare you? How dare you have a life? um, and that's probably how it manifested. So I'm sorry, and I apologize for the door. I wonder if that dent is still there. I don't know.
I think that apartment building had a fire. I don't know how bad, but I think it's still
Oh,
there. But next time
that's
you're in Los Gatos, go down to 122 Town Terrace and take a look.
I'll be sure to do that. Like, trip down memory
um,
lane. I'll knock on
but
the door and be like, "Excuse me, a good friend of mine used to live here. Do you mind if I just take a look around and
and
just,
just can I see if you have any cookies? Because I used to get some after school.
I used to eat cookies here. This is where we'd watch Weird Science and nerd out. Oh,
Right. And Goonies.
and
And
Goonies. Yeah,
yeah.
Mel
No, but
Brooks movies.
I appreciate your vulnerability, and thank you. Uh, it means a lot to me, that I mean, mainly that you had such strong feelings, and I hear you, man. Like I hear, like we were, I that was my first long-term girlfriend, and trying to like find who I was as a, performer, and and I was very strict with the things I liked, and I think about it now, and I'm like, I listen to Nirvana now, and I listen, to Metallica now. Like,
Mhm.
and I don't think I had the appreciation then, because I was so obsessed with trying to please my father, and um, you know, get his attention, that I didn't appreciate it, other things, as what I should have. I mean, I listen to Nirvana now, and I'm like, this is fucking brilliant.
Mhm.
And so it
That-
just it's yeah. Go
and
ahead.
ironically, I listen to Frank Sinatra a lot now, and that's, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like you kind of
Right.
grow up and you're like, oh, there are other types of music. Then it's okay to not care what what I'm listening to, or you know I don't know. There's just such a thing when you're a teenager. It's like you try to categorize yourself. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like you put yourself in a box. It's really sad, but you kind of say like, this is who I am, and this is where I belong. This is who I fit in with,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to deviate from that. And it's unfortunate, because that's the time in your life when you really should just try to explore and keep your mind open to any as much as possible. But I think we're just so self-conscious at that age that it's just you get this,
Yeah. And
you just freeze
we're all
up.
trying to get laid, and
Yeah, you're very concerned about how you're presenting yourself, especially to the opposite sex.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I love all that stuff. Frank Sinatra. It's funny because when you first told me on our initial meeting, I was kind of like, oh, so what kind of music are you into? And you were afraid to tell me. You were like, very, I'm into Frank Sinatra. It's my, and yeah, I was just kind of like, oh God, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
uh,
but that was all, like I said, it was all about me trying to connect with my father, like,
huh.
because maybe, I mean, like that's the thing that maybe we could relate on, is, my father didn't sit me down and tell me anything, except the only thing I remember him saying was, get a job.
Get a
That was
job.
it.
You're like, I'm 15.
I'm 4 years old.
Yeah, get out of here. It's like when I was your age, I was spit shining shoes.
Right. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
but we let's get into some glam. We got to talk about
glam.
some glam, because when you went to San Francisco State University, something miraculous happened.
Yes. I don't know if you call it miraculous, but it was a
I mean,
milestone event.
I mean,
Let's
this
say.
doesn't happen to fucking people. It doesn't. It really doesn't. Like, everybody dreams about this scenario, like this is how they get discovered, but it doesn't happen. This is like a very, very rare occurrence. Can you tell us about it?
Sure, sure. So I was a freshman or sophomore, I can't remember, but in college, and I was walking across campus, um, in my standard like black hoodie sweatshirt, and just I don't know. I just remember being very sick that day. Like I just had the worst cold. But out of the blue,
I need some NyQuil.
I mean, it was that bad.
Yeah.
And I was walking across campus, and this woman just stopped me and just told me that, hey, she's trying to cast for this music video, and asked me if it would be all right if she just did a quick, interview with me. And, so she took out her little camcorder and just started taping and asked me a few questions. I I remember being kind of jazzed about it, because I remember going to class that, right after that, and kind of being like, oh, check it out, what just happened. But I honestly didn't think anything would come of it. But then I get the call the next day saying that they'd like me to audition. So I was like, all right, whatever, let's just do this. And I went down there, auditioned. The audition consisted of me just pretending to fight with like three other guys who I guess were also auditioning. And when I say fight, I mean like pushing each other around, like we're in the, the music, the Beat It music video, the Michael Jackson,
Right.
like it wasn't even like slick, like West Side Story. It was just like, hey man, like you think you're bad, you ain't nothing. And that was it. That was the audition. And then the day after that, I got called and they said, hey, yeah, please show up here at this date and time. I don't even think they told me how much I get paid. Or maybe they did. I think it was like $500 for like 3 days work, which
Right.
was, that was great. I'll take it. Like,
Right.
I'm desperate. And so, but yeah, so I started, I went to set and I realized more and more they were using me quite a bit, where, I noticed that like I was in every scene, and
Right.
and I was kind of shocked. I should also preface this by saying at that time I had really crazy hair, like wild hair,
Mhm.
like an afro, half dreadlocks. So I was really into Bob Marley at the time, so I really wanted dreadlocks. And but since I'm half white, my hair doesn't dread up as like nicely as it would if I was completely black. But
Right.
regardless. So anyway, so my hair just looked crazy, and I think that's what really got me the part. So going back, I ended up starring this music video, which then blew up on MTV.
Hey Siri, play music.
Oh, okay. Oh, came prepared.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Everybody, this was the music video. Does it bring back memories?
No, because I watch it every day. I'm just kidding. No,
So that
it was,
Third Eye
yeah.
Jumper.
You could say, yeah, you could say, okay, so I was discovered. You could say that, sure. Why not?
Yeah, it was a classic. Get me that person.
It was kind of like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, I made this music video. Again, they didn't tell me I was starring in it. They were just filming me a lot, and I think it helped that I wasn't in a union or in SAG or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah, regardless, they ended up showing it on like MTV, on Total Request Live, and it became one of like the top 10 music videos. And
have you looked at the views on YouTube?
yeah.
How many
I mean, I've
views?
looked at the views. I don't know. I can't honestly remember. I've just checked it out on YouTube. I should say I haven't looked at the views, but I've looked at the comments. I did look at the comments. I was just
Right.
like, oh, I wonder if anyone's ever going to talk about me, but they don't.
Right.
They just
Right.
talk about how the nostalgic they are for the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was used, like Jim Carrey like started singing it in the movie The Yes Man or Yes Man.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Yeah.
I was like, where are my royalties for that?
It's too
I
bad
don't think it works like that.
you didn't have a cameo in that scene.
I know. That would be bizarre if I got called up to do that. Like, that's it. It's my comeback.
But I mean, I remember like being out in public with you, being at the I think it was Valley Fair Mall in San Jose, if that's the name of it. I may be fucking it up, but I remember being out in public and people being like, "Hey, you're in that video."
Yeah. No, I remember at least for a month, I was getting recognized every day.
Yeah.
Like sometimes a few times a day, where I was just kind of like, I can't believe this is happening. Is this what it's like? This what it's like to be famous?
Right.
And it was great, honestly. From I just had a great time, and not just like that part, but just filming the video. And I mean, they made me do some pretty crazy stuff. Like, I remember leaning over the edge of a building, like where I was attached to this very thick steel cable just tied around my waist, while they essentially let me dangle over the edge of a building. It's funny the things you do when you're 19, 20.
Right.
You're like,
Right.
And just met a lot of cool people. I actually like made a lot of friends just from that music video. And then from there, people were like, oh, you could definitely get an agency now, or you can and just walk into anywhere, and that's exactly what I did.
Hmm.
I walked into an agency, and I just told them I needed an agent. I was like, this is what people said I should do, so I'm doing it. And I remember one agent told me, they're like, well, you can't just walk in here, like you can't just like expect an agent to sign you. And I'm like, okay.
You're like, yes, I can.
Well,
And
then
then you just
I
start playing it.
I know exactly. I'm like, listen to this. But no, then I walked into the second agency I walked into. They did recognize me from that video, and they just signed me right away.
Mm,
So, neener for that first agent.
right. Yeah. They
Um,
missed out on the
yeah, no,
Manning experience.
it was. I'm like, you don't want this, you don't know what you're missing. So,
Right.
no, but then from there, I got a modeling contract and just started doing all of these ads and some commercials. And I I went to Europe to do some modeling, and that set me off on this whole road trip through Europe. It was a blast, and I guess I do have to thank that one lady who found me
Yeah.
on campus. And I remember going up to her because I would see her, on random shoots and just places here and there, and thanking her profusely.
Yeah. I mean, that's so rare. That's what everybody dreams of, is just, somebody being like, I want you. I want you
It
to be
was
a
fun.
star.
It was fun. It was fun. And I can't say that's what she did per se. She was just more like, I'm auditioning. You know what I mean? I'm looking for people, and she just happened to find me. So it was
Yeah.
great.
And, but I mean, you were everywhere. You were on billboards, right? Like, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
yeah, that's amazing.
remember. Yeah, I remember seeing my face on a billboard that was like 20 feet high, or just it was just huge. It was like it was just there. It was a lot of me on the side of an Apple store.
Right.
It was good. It was fun.
Are you talking about like on Sunset, like on the like one of those buildings where they put an entire advertisement on the side of like a 20-story building or something?
Yeah, well, so this was in San Francisco,
Oh, okay, okay.
but it was the Apple store in San Francisco. So you would walk by, and in the window at least, it was just my gigantic face staring
Mhm.
down at you in judgment.
Right.
Yeah. No, I
Mhm.
remember I was modeling or showing off the first I it was not an I it was an iPod. Yeah, remember iPods?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my
Yeah.
god.
I didn't
And
have
so
one, but I remember them.
yeah, yeah, that was before they had even come out. They were like, they gave me one, and I was like, what is this thing? And they're like, oh,
Right.
well, we can't actually tell you because it's not on the market yet. And I was like,
Right.
is it like a streaming player? They're like, yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. And I'm like, cool, cool. um, but yeah, back when like it was like amazing to hold like you could hold like whatever a
Like
thousand
30
songs. You know what I
songs
mean?
on it.
Yeah, no, no, it was like huge. Oh my god, groundbreaking.
Right. Wow,
Yeah,
that's amazing. And it did help your romantic life, right?
it didn't hurt for sure. that
Right.
was that was kind of like my way of making up for all those lost years in high school. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, you
uh,
definitely like superseded me in dating at that point, that by far. And it's funny, I was thinking like if you had had a smartphone during that time, you could have been like in a bar like next to, somebody you were interested in, and be like, "Hey, have you seen this? Oh, that's me. Oh, I didn't realize that was on."
I know. Or what was it? Or maybe like, like it was at the bar. I asked the bartender to put this video on.
You like carry around a VHS at
Yeah.
that.
Just come on, man. I'll give you $10. Come on. What's
Right.
the worst that could happen?
But
Yeah, no, it was good. It was fun
yeah.
times.
So what happened after? I know you went to Europe and you had an interesting experience there. You got like herded into a room of models.
Yeah, no, so they basically asked me to go to Europe, to Milan, to try to get work, and I was that was big because I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually going to like Milan, to model. This is insane.
Right.
And it's funny because they didn't tell me. They basically just said, you're going to Europe. You're essentially paying for the plane ticket. See, I thought it was an all expenses paid trip, but
Right.
I found out later that I'm actually paying for the airfare. I had never actually been outside of the country. So this is huge.
Right.
But they told me, they're like, you're paying for your own airfare, and think I think they were paying for the apartment, which was nice. They were paying my rent, so that was nice. But I get there, and it's just an apartment full of these
full of
guys, like
dudes,
5
right?
guys, full of dudes, very good looking dudes.
Right.
They're all models, but the place was a pigsty. Dishes had never been washed, I don't think, and they were just miserable. They were just waiting around, just trying to get work, and I just looked at this scene, and I'm like, no, I'm taking off. So I essentially went and I just forgot about the whole modeling thing and just went backpacking through Europe for the next 2.5 months. And
how was that?
Oh, it was amazing. That was probably one of the best decisions I'd ever made.
Right.
Because I'm like, I don't want to stick around here. Honestly, Milan is not the prettiest city to begin with. And so I was disappointed, to say the least, when I got there, because you imagine Italy, you see it in all these movies, and then Milan is really more just like kind of like a full of factories and warehouses, and not the first
very
place
industrial.
Go to. Very industrial. And so then my next stop was Florence, and that like fit the bill. I was just like, this is what I've been picturing.
I actually drove in Florence. That was crazy. Trying to drive around all the scooters. I was like, fuck, I don't want to drive. I'm going to run somebody over.
Oh yeah. But I think they're so used to that. They're such good drivers that they look out for that,
Yeah.
What are those little scooters they drive?
Vespas.
Yeah, Vespas. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, they're excellent drivers. No, it was great. I remember getting into some crazy adventures there. Probably, my biggest one was I got into a fight with a taxi driver over a bartender, this female bartender who I just met that night. And it was just insane. And honestly, alcohol can get you into some pretty fun times, but it can also get you into some really crazy times.
So what happened? Did you get in like a physical altercation or a verbal argument?
No, it was very physical.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was.
Was it in the cab?
It was outside of the cab after. So basically what happened was I was in Paris, and just kind of, I think it was my first night there. So I was just raring to go. I just wanted to hit every bar and just explore, And so I get to this bar, I meet this girl, the bartender, and she tells me that she'd seen me on the subway. She thought I was really cute, and I was like, okay. Obviously we connected right away, and we agreed to go out later that night after she got off work. But of course, I had about 4 hours to kill, 3 or 4 hours to kill before she got off work. So I didn't want to just stick around there looking like some weird stalker. And so I left, and to kill time, I essentially just got really drunk. I just went to every bar I could think of and just started drinking. And so when I finally showed up at like 2 a.m. to meet up with her, and I should also, disclaimer, she is wearing like this kind of hat at the time, so kind of obscured her face, but
was there some false advertising is what I'm hearing?
It was just kind of like, a dimly lit bar. And, so I met her outside of the bar. Right. And I was just so wasted that I was just kind of like, I saw her talking to another guy. In fact, looked like she was arguing with another guy. And so I just kind of got in between them, and I'm like, all right, I got this story. And like, thought I was being the hero by pulling her away from him.
Right.
And so we instantly just like, I hail a cab, we jump in the cab. And remember, I'm just obliterated, just drunk as hell.
Right.
And we jump in the cab and something was off. Something felt awkward and strange.
Right.
But she and the cab driver, oh yeah, you know, and she was, by the way, she was happy to go in the cab. She's jumped in the cab with me and we're like, all right, let's go. But she and the bartender started arguing, and I don't speak a word of French.
Wait, the bartender was in the cab with you? What happened?
Yeah. So
Okay.
so basically, like I said, like I saw her outside of the bar, looked like she was arguing with some guy.
Right.
I get in between them, kind of like, you know, we go off
Right.
and we
Hey,
both jump in the
you
cab.
get your damn hands off.
Yeah, no, it was very, very heroic.
Right.
And so we jump in the cab and we're driving for a little ways. And, you know, she and the cab driver start arguing in French.
Mm-hmm.
And I, you know, I don't speak a word of French.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't tell what was going on, but I just figured like, if I just give this guy money, it'll calm him down. So I just started offering whatever, as much as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And then he pulls over and gets out of the cab and
Mm-hmm.
opens her door and like takes her purse and like just takes it and just throws it out in the street. And now she's like kind of like clawing him and just like starting to fight, you know, and just like, and I'm like, I get out on the other side and I'm like, what is going on? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I see, I literally, as soon as I get out of the cab, I see him just punch her in the face.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. And like,
Holy
you know,
shit.
yeah. And I'm just like, wow, what the hell is happening? And so I just immediately like attack him, you know what I mean? And I just run at him and just, he and I start fighting and she's like on his back, like clawing him. And it's just a mess, you know what I mean? So there's the three of us just kind of like fighting on the sidewalk. I remember going like running at him and trying like my flying kick, like flying dragon kick. Too many.
So you literally backed up from the altercation and then did a running flying sidekick.
Yeah, exactly. Like something like you'd see, like, you know, like, I don't know.
Did it land?
Never really got into a fight
did
that
you
well.
Go past
no, I did go past him, and I remember hurting my ankle really badly. You know, but didn't take too long before the police showed up.
Okay.
And they arrested the three of us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so they took me to the station,
mm-hmm.
you know,
and this is in Paris, right?
This is in Paris. Yeah.
Right.
My first night in Paris. And they basically, like, I'm still so drunk, like, but they handcuffed me to the chairs outside. They don't even like put me in a cell or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But they handcuffed me to like this kind of like a waiting area, like out in the front lobby. And they're just getting a kick. These French police officers are just getting a kick out of like asking me about California and what it's like there, and
really
start talking to me about Baywatch and how, you know, Pamela Anderson and Golden Beaches and all that stuff.
Right. You're like, every woman looks like Pamela Anderson in California.
Well, the funny thing was I was so drunk, still so drunk. I was like really giddy. I was like high on life. And I was just, I think I was just cracking them up. They were just laughing. And, you know, at one point I actually like pulled my hand out of the handcuffs and started walking down the hallway. And they're like, Chris, get back here, Chris. Come on. And I'm like, Pierre, what? So, eventually, I don't know if they just took my statement, but they just let me go. You know, I think they were just waiting for me to sober up. I think that's what happened. You know,
did you learn about what that
American
altercation between the bartender and the cab driver was about?
So okay. So the next day, the next morning, I actually go to a hospital because my ankle is killing me.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of like bandage up my ankle, you know.
Mm-hmm.
and send me off on my way. And so I get to the hostel the next morning, and I'm just exhausted, hungover, just tired. And I call the bartender because she had given me her number when
Mm.
I first met her. And I call her and I tell her, I was like, that was really crazy last night, huh? And she's like, I do not know. I saw you get into a cab with another girl and you just drove off. And I just realized what happened. And
Oh
I was like, oh
no.
my God. Like, I was just shocked. And I just couldn't believe that I had just taken some random stranger and jumped into a cab with her, and then like got into some crazy fight with a cab driver. I mean, all this is to say, like, just next time you have time to kill, don't spend it drinking. Okay.
Okay. Let that be a
But
lesson to everyone listening and watching.
yeah, it was
Don't
pretty
drink
insane.
your time away.
Yeah, go get some coffee. Like, spend some time at a cafe. So yeah, that was pretty insane. And fortunately, like she understood. I think the story I then related to her
Just
about what happened. I
okay.
think it was too crazy for her to not believe. You know what I
Right.
mean? So we did go out. This time I met up with the right girl. I made sure it was her.
Right.
And we could have this kind of romance in Paris for like the next week. It was
Wow.
great. Yeah, it was fun. Like I stayed at her apartment, and she showed me all the sights, and um, we actually had like kind of a long distance relationship after that. And I went to Paris a few times after that just to see her, and it was great.
Did you make love at the top of the Eiffel Tower?
Did not. We
Okay.
did go to the Eiffel Tower at the top, but we did not make love there.
Okay. Just curious.
That's
I
okay.
mean, seems
I don't
wild, so
think
I just
many
want to
people have done that. Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
people have. Maybe not like in the present, but maybe back in the day. It was probably
At
a little more
the
accessible.
very top. Okay. That would be some. I don't know. Where do you hide? I don't know. Where do you
May
stay
I
away?
it's hey, it's Paris. No, they're not hiding. They're just out there showing it all. You know what I'm
I
saying?
voted taking selfies. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
This is before the age of selfies, but
Menage a trois up at the top of the Eiffel.
that's perhaps. But no, that
That's
was not
probably where
me.
it all began. The menage a trois probably happened, the first one at the Eiffel Tower on top.
I, I don't see why, but why not? Okay, sure. Why not the Statue of Liberty, right?
I'm sure that menage a
The-
trois are a little older than the Eiffel Tower,
yeah.
but
That's probably true. Maybe that's anyway.
but so what happened after Europe? And I got to say, it was probably around this time we had another. We got back together. We had
Uh-huh.
a friendship reunion, and I was at UCLA working on. I think I had finished just was at the end of finishing my master's degree at UCLA, and we had reconnected. And you were going to move down to LA. Was that after Paris?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
For
are we
sure.
missing anything in there? That's. I mean, that was a great story, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, my mom, she gets a kick out of it too. She says like that was like she's like that's just like a Jack Kerouac book, or like some crazy story. Like
I feel like your mom loves it when you get crazy.
she does. Well,
Yeah.
she did back then. I think because it was my early 20s, and I
Right.
think she did want me to go out there and sow my wild oats. And
Because isn't that how Hayes and Lois met? They were in the free love like San Francisco during the like late 60s, right?
yeah, but they were like, my mom definitely was part of that whole hippie scene.
Right.
She knew a lot. She hung out with a lot of hippies. She was not herself a hippie because
Oh,
I
okay.
guess
Okay.
she had a job. That's what separated her.
Right.
But she did hang out with all the hippies on Haight Ashbury, and my
Right.
dad was way more conservative. He was not like part of that scene,
Right.
but no, they met in like the most, their story is pretty cute. I guess they lived in the same apartment building, and one day they decided to share a cab,
Mm,
and the rest is history. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah.
But no, they were definitely not like as wild as 1960 San Francisco
Right.
would
Right.
suggest.
Yeah, and I do want to state, your father, and I know he passed away a few years ago, and my condolences for your loss. He was my memory of him is he
Yeah.
was a very warm, uh kind, his hospitality was wonderful. I just remember him always smiling, and he had a beautiful smile, and his laugh was, um, he was just such a sweet man. And I
Oh,
really
thank you.
enjoyed being around him when I visited your home.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, no, he really liked you too, by the way.
Thank you.
But yeah, he was. But he was just kind of one of those dads. It's
I remember you and I were like roughhousing, and he was driving somewhere. And I remember the first time I had ever heard the term grab assing.
yeah. So
Do you
quit your
remember?
grab ass and
He's like, you got to stop that grab ass.
yeah. No,
And
he
it
was
like
funny.
stopped us, but not because like it was because we were both like, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
definitely old school term.
Right.
Um, that's funny. Like, I don't think like he was. I'm surprised. He must have been like upset because he usually doesn't care enough to even like stop trying to.
Yeah, I think we were just getting a little out of control in the back. We were,
He's
we are
probably
probably
like, "Who is my son gay?" I wonder. Because I think we were so close. We like would giggle like schoolgirls. You know what I mean? Like
right.
we're like,
Yeah.
oh no.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like it was like he was upset. I just felt like it was just irritated, and it was just funny that he used that term because I had not heard that until that moment, and I was like,
Yeah,
what? We were like 13 or 14, so
yeah, yeah. No, it was. It's funny too because this was probably. Do you remember like when we were in high school? You know, and we were hanging out the the theater crew, like Tony, Josh, Jeremy, like those guys, and
right.
there was a lot of like um grab assing. I guess you could say we were
There
like
was
always just
there was literally
messing with each
ball
other.
grabbing, and I will
Yeah,
say there was like I really feel like it was a form of domination, like because what everybody would do is grab each other's balls
yeah,
until they were in so much pain and they had to say I give,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Why did we do that? It was like or like chode, remember? Like
Yeah, it was always like humiliating each
no.
other, dominating, and that ball thing was definitely like I feel like it was like sexual frustration and like domination being like I am the top alpha, like, and I had no issue with not being the top alpha because it was a lot of pain to survive
Yeah,
all of that ball grabbing and get to the
yeah,
top of the ball grabbing like chain. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I remember our friend Michael Malloy, he and Tony, we had that like it was like basically like the WWF like of it was like the ultimate match of like who can withstand the most testicular pain. And I
yeah,
remember it came everybody, we were all out, we'd all tapped out, but Michael Malloy and Tony Panighetti were in it. And I just remember Tony on top of Michael, like laying, and you could see his arm just squeezing, and Michael was silent. Like he
yeah.
would not, like he was so determined not to give in to Tony. Remember that?
I remember him just lying there like, some wounded animal. But yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, it was like he had just like let go. He's like, I'm not going to lose this. You know what I mean? And I just remember Tony being on top and going, give, give.
yeah. I still wonder why we were doing that. Like, because it was painful. I still have memories of like
I'm
literally
surprised
someone
that
squeezing my balls like I thought one of them was gonna pop. Like
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely
it's
dangerous.
it's hard.
I mean,
Yeah,
somebody could have definitely lost a testicle
yeah,
or had some severe like damage where it prevented, being able to produce sperm or something
yeah,
like that. I mean, that it was pretty bad, but I
yeah,
was definitely, I think the root of it when I think about it was domination, like who was the alpha male, like, and sexual frustration combined. Um, so
yeah,
it was weird. I'll say it
yeah.
was definitely odd,
yeah.
to say
I
the
think
least.
yeah, I mean you're right. Probably a lot of that, but you don't think about that at the time. At the time, you're just trying to like, make people laugh, or just,
Yeah.
it was like, it was like wrestling, but it was like we were wrestling, but we were also ball grabbing, like, and squeezing and just trying to. So I guess that would be the domination aspect, but I don't know. When you're that age, I guess you just think it's all normal. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it was just an odd experience all the way around,
but
but
we
yeah,
got girls. I mean, they got girls. I didn't get girls.
yeah, I mean, but that's the interesting thing is the ones who are the best at it, like
Yeah.
Tony and Josh, they had no issues, with the ladies at all. But
No.
and maybe that says something that they had this alpha dominance in every way, and they were making it known. And yeah, they definitely had girlfriends before we did, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was. It's funny because I mean, we were also like got a lot of kicks. Like we were just like, you know, we did the gay voice a lot. You know what I mean? We were like trying to do the whole gay thing. I remember there was this guy in our class. He was pretty homophobic. He would, spout out his homophobic, and he was racist too.
Right.
Um, but I don't know if you remember who I'm talking about, but
Can you give me a hint? Like,
he had
was it
a
in high school?
yeah, and I think he wanted to get a gun rack for the back of his pickup truck, and
Okay, I feel like he pantsed me. If I know who you're talking about, he like pulled my pants down in PE.
no, because that he wouldn't have been that strong to be able to do that. He was just whatever. It doesn't
Okay.
matter. But like, I guess my point is like I remember we would try to disgust him or not disgust him, but just really make him feel uncomfortable by
Right.
just acting like very, feminine,
Right.
and do that whole flamboyant gay thing just around him. And
Right.
um, and I remember we were just doing that. I think it's just a weird time. I think when you're a kid, you're just a teenager, you're still trying to figure yourself out, you know, like you're I don't know, it's like you're kind of like, okay, I knew I was attracted to girls from a very young age, but I also thought it was really funny to just act gay. You know what I mean? To act
Right.
flamboyant. You know what I mean? And I think, and you guys were like the perfect foil because you guys also would do the same and just do the whole effeminate voice and
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just being theatrical and
yeah, yeah,
there was a lot of in like Mel Brooks movies. There's the Dom DeLuise and Blazing Saddles. Like there was a
yeah,
lot of jokes based on the things that we watched.
yeah,
That
yeah.
were, I mean, yeah, they were just jokes that were, yeah,
I wonder if do you remember that guy? Well, we had a friend who actually was gay. And I wonder if we
yes,
have you remember, okay, you know what I'm talking
yeah,
about.
I do, and I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope he wasn't offended like by that stuff, but I don't know.
It's hard to say, but that's the thing is like we don't know. Like I think it's being in this culture, like because it is inherently racist, sexist, homophobic, and we're born into this, and
Mm-hmm.
that's all we know is is
Mm-hmm.
is that. And
Mm-hmm.
and I was thinking about when we went to Los Gatos High. I mean, that was a super competitive. Like all of the children that went there were from wealthy, elite Silicon Valley executives, pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
so there was a huge expectation for success and like competition. And so, all of that stuff plays into it. I mean, into that, and then the homophobia and racism, it's all part of it,
Right. It's
and
all kind of
and we're
tied
trying to
together.
understand it and like make sense of it and like, in some cases probably normalizing homophobia, whatever it was. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was all we were trying to find our way through this minefield of systemic, injustice, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wonder too, like, if it was just the time, like, like those Mel Brooks movies, you know what I mean? Blazing Saddles. You could never make that movie today. Just
Yeah, I
wouldn't
mean, that
happen.
was written by Richard Pryor, which a
Oh,
lot of
I didn't
people
know
don't
that.
know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was written by Richard Pryor, and he was supposed to star in it with Gene
Right.
Wilder.
Yeah.
And what happened was, is because of his, drug use, the studio was like, we're not gonna, take a chance,
Oh, right.
and which
Right.
is sad because that would have been an awesome, you
Yeah.
know,
But the guy who did take that role, he was great. I
yeah,
loved him.
Clive, something, yeah,
Yeah, he was great. But yeah, no. So those types of movies, like they just can't. You wouldn't be able to make them today. At
yeah,
least
no,
they wouldn't. At least they wouldn't get that type of distribution, that Mel
yeah,
Brooks had.
yeah,
So maybe I don't know. Maybe we were just kind of a product of our times. I mean, you know, where you could just. It was okay to make fun of gay people. And just to mimic them. Whereas I don't know, I wonder today, like kids in high school, if they're more aware of, how offensive it is. You know what I mean?
I feel like the younger, I can't even believe I'm fucking saying this, but like the youth, it's weird to think we're not youth anymore.
We're middle aged.
I know, I know,
I'm not going to call us old, but we are
right.
middle aged.
But like I feel like the youth are more aware of social justice issues, racism. They're more, it's like more like it's more on the surface of their consciousness than it was with us. I feel like because it took me a long time to start even to begin to wake up and see what this whole thing was about, like
Mhm.
how our system works, why there's racism and sexism and homophobia and any ism really.
Mhm.
And so it took a long time, but I think the youth of, so weird saying that, the youth of today uh definitely are more aware than
Hmm.
we were, I think.
I
Maybe
mean,
that's
I
just
hope
my
so.
old perspective.
Yeah, it's funny. I like that. I mean, it's optimistic. Sometimes I think with social media nowadays, like, there's that whole idea now that you could really just humiliate someone like in front of the entire world. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be confined to like just a classroom. Like, oh, you could just drag someone's name through the dirt. So it's like on one hand, yeah, I agree with you that they probably are, more aware, but they also know that, you know, I don't know, there's still that bullying aspect in young people, I feel like.
Yeah, well, sociopath. No, I was saying social media definitely is weaponized now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad because I love Louis C.K.'s comedy, but it's hard knowing that he was jacking off in front of people all the time. But
Hmm.
um, he had a great
Weird.
bit about like what kids do with social media. Like if it, like when they argue with each other or they make fun of each other, they can see like the other person respond to it and react, poorly to it and be like, oh, I don't, that makes a person sad. That doesn't feel good. And but what
Hmm.
he was saying was like social media, you just write something horrible and then send it and go, that felt good,
Right.
because
Right.
there's no interaction. They don't see the person's expression, so
Right.
sadness, so there's no empathy built up.
Right. Right. It's just kind of like writing, insulting someone, like writing it like on like a gigantic billboard, for everyone else to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And but in this case, yeah, it's online and it's permanent, which is really sad too. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't
yeah. They
know.
don't get a chance to fail. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things probably we both have done that maybe if it was captured on social media forever, or online somehow, it would probably be pretty difficult. Like
Yeah.
to might have changed us in an odd way, but
Right. Right. That's why it's hard to imagine. I with my daughter, I don't know. I'm already thinking. I'm like, she's not getting a phone until she's 18 or something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just gonna
yeah,
try to keep her from that world, but I know it's impossible. Like,
yeah.
even now, it's impossible. She's like, she grabs my phone, and it's like I can tell she's learning from it. She's like
Yeah, she's like light. There's light.
analyzing. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like, if only I
yeah.
could crack this code, I could really start using this thing.
Right, right.
Um, I wonder, like, with your your son, do you think that, like, are you going to try to protect him from that, or?
Well, he's already, he's already been exposed to it, and so and the other thing is, the remote learning. He's had to use computers, and he's had so he's already, I mean, he's 6 now, so like he's already used to it. And I will say there has been some issues with the phone because he has used the phone, and it's very difficult to get him to stop using it,
Mm,
which is problematic. So I think that the issue is if someone is not exposed to something, they don't know what they're missing,
hmm
and so it doesn't matter, you
hmm
know. But I think if they're constantly exposed to it, and like, that's a whole different situation. So
hmm
yeah, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I feel like it's a tool. Like these
hmm
things are tools, and they can be used uh you know for good, and they can use for horrible things. So I go back and forth. It's really difficult. And but he had a difficult start in the beginning of his life. So it's we're just trying to make the best of everything, and make him feel, the main thing is to make him have empathy and compassion, and
hmm
understand, causality, that if that his actions have effects on people. And so the idea is to infuse as much empathy and compassion and love as possible,
hmm
no matter what. So that's what we're
Wow.
trying to work on.
I like that. I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, no, that's
And
I
I'll
know
admit,
that's all we can
I
do.
have no fucking clue what I'm doing. I did not, I got into this because I was trying to love beyond my fear. Like, I mean, I had an opportunity before I met my wife to get into a relationship, and that person wanted to have a family, and I was like, no, I don't want to pass on my Usher syndrome. I don't want to, I mean, I don't want to have to expose you to my loss, that I'm experiencing, this loss of my eyes and hearing. And so I kind of pushed that all away, and then I decided when I met Rachel, I'm gonna just experience everything. And so yeah, in many
Oh,
ways I'm
great.
not prepared, but I guess who is really prepared, but
Yeah. No.
so
Yeah, no, I know. That's the thing. You just have to do it or not, but there's really no way, even if, like, you're taking care of all these, other people's kids or whatever. I don't think you'll ever know until you actually have your own. And
yeah,
I feel like we're still at this stage where all we have to do is just make sure she's physically healthy, and we're helping her develop and meeting her milestones. But when she can actually really understand, when she learns to talk, it's going to be a different world, because all of a
yeah,
sudden, like, we have to actually be, really these noble creatures that, I wish we could say, like, we are, but, like, we're still kind of trying to make sure we're always empathetic and that we're always following this moral code, and um, we kind of have this, this, we go back and forth, Gina and I, where we're like, okay, even though that's probably the easiest way, maybe, like, this person undercharged us at a restaurant, or whatever it is, like, we actually have to do the moral thing now for her,
hmm,
to teach her good morals, you know because we're still kind of like, I don't know, sometimes we feel like teenagers in some respect, like, oh, if we can get away with this, oh, we can,
right,
and but so it's kind of like forcing us to step up to the plate and,
yeah,
be good examples. um so it'll be interesting, and but I guess it's a journey. That's all it
yeah,
is.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, but I think your parents were together your entire life, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that helps because you have a foundation for what a relationship that stay together, you know,
Hmm.
is. I think that, and I don't know about Gina, but I mean, I think if you have some kind of model to base, at least to start from, that
Hmm.
really helps. If because your parents were together. I remember they, you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, they and Gina's parents, are still together.
yeah,
Um, and it's great. As obviously like that's the ideal. You want them to stay together, but it's also I think I don't know. I think there's like you want to like know that at least I want my daughter to know that like Gina and I are sharing the responsibility
mm,
50-50, because it's funny, I still like you hear, or you read articles, you hear like, that men are really stepping up to the plate and
hmm,
taking care of their kids just like women are, or women have been doing since like the dawn of time.
hmm,
Um, but I don't see it. I don't see a lot of it. I'm basically taking care of Julia uh, while Gina's, she's working from home, but she's working.
hmm,
I'm also working from home, but I'm basically, my job is not nearly as what's the word, strenuous
hmm,
as hers. Um, and so I'm able to do both. Let's just say
right,
that. And right now I'm actually on parental leave for like the next 2 months. So I'm really just kind of like able to focus on Julia.
hmm,
So I guess what I'm saying is that like since I'm the one kind of taking her out on these day trips and taking her to the park and beach or whatever, I don't see men at all doing any of this stuff. Like
really,
it's all still women. It's
huh?
all like just the women take care of the kids and it feels awkward to be honest. Even when they see me with a baby, I still feel like they look at me as like a threat. It's strange.
They're like, did you steal that baby?
Yeah, is that a real baby or are you just trying to
Are you
get
are
into the
you trying?
playground?
Is this your way of meeting women, having a baby?
Yeah, did you rent that baby somewhere? Buy it off the black market just so you could get laid.
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of strange, and I'm just wondering where these guys are, like, that we hear so
Patriarchy,
much about.
the
Yeah,
patriarchy
yeah,
channel. Yeah.
the patriarchy channel, exactly.
They're watching that at
Yeah,
home
yeah.
while their wife is taking care of the children.
How to be men's men. Yeah,
Right.
I know. So, but I think it's kind of like goes both ways. I think that women have also kind of are still buying into this patriarchal attitude, or society where it's we're still ingrained with that idea that like, well, men go out and make all the money and women stay home and cook, clean, take care of the kids, and the way it's been done, that's the way it'll continue to be.
Right.
So I think you know
I just like
it goes
I
both
felt
ways.
like when I said right, I sounded like I'm like affirming that, like, yep, that's the way it should be.
Goddamn right.
No, but I
Do
mean,
you
yeah,
even know where your kid is right now?
it's like it's a problem, I mean, but yeah, I don't know how to defeat patriarchy, but except that you're doing it. You're out there. You're showing that the father can care for a child, and
I
yeah,
I feel like a superhero whenever I go outside sometimes. People are
right,
like, wow, God bless you. God bless you, sir. I'm like, it's crazy because all I'm doing is taking care of my baby.
right,
Like, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
like you women don't get that. They just kind of like people like, oh yeah, well, you're the mom, so of course.
right,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? So, God bless you just for taking her to the doctor's office with you. And I'm like, well,
right,
yeah, I don't have a choice.
right.
But
But let
we'll
me.
see.
There's something I want to get into because so after you came back from Paris, you moved to LA,
Mhm.
and there's something I have to confess. So one time, this was when we were hanging out, and I remember I was living on Occidental between Third and Sixth Street, and I remember you wanted to come over for something, and I don't remember what it was. And well, I do, but I don't want to mention it right now. But anyway, so like you you were like calling me like incessantly, and like and you were trying to get a hold of me, and I wasn't picking up, and I was tired. I remember it was like I feel like, yeah, so I was getting off work, I was tired, and I feel like it was like 10 o'clock, and Matt, my roommate, was not there. And I remember you kept calling me, and then I heard the doorbell ring, and I was like, oh fuck. And for whatever reason, I was just not in the mood or something. And I remember I literally got into bed and like turned off all the lights, and I got into bed just to like be like, okay, I'm sleeping. And then like I remember hearing a thump, like I heard like the front gate rattling, and then I heard a thump, like you had jumped over the fence, and then like, and next thing I knew, I hear a knock, and then I hear, I know you're in there.
What the hell? You make me sound like a stalker. I don't, do you even
No,
remember? Okay, well, I guess you said I was there for something. I
you're
don't
trying to get
remember
some
what it
weed.
was.
It was Matt had
Oh,
some weed, and you were trying to get some weed, but
okay. That does, now that sounds like me. No, okay.
yeah, and I remember you were like, "I know you're there," and like, and I was like, "Fuck!" I don't know where the weed is. Like, I don't know where. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know where to look for it, and
Okay.
so I was just, and I don't know, like, that was an intense time, and it was just intense all around because I just started. I think it was near when I just started working in a digital playground in the
Hmm.
adult film stuff. So I was
Hmm.
dealing with that, and so it was just there was a lot of stuff going on, and I was also having a shift in my vision loss, and so yeah, and so that happened, and I
That's
apologize. I
okay.
should have just opened the door and been like, "Dude, I don't know where it is. I'm sorry," but I was very cowardly, and
It's okay. It's
yeah.
okay. It's all right. Honestly, I'm surprised I tried to like breaking and entering. I
I mean,
must
you
have
did.
really needed some weed.
Yeah, I mean, you just hopped over the security fence, but which
I'm
was
like
it
Cheech and
wasn't
Chong.
it wasn't a huge deal, but
Yes.
I do remember you saying, "I know you're in there."
I was like, I see your car outside. I literally see you looking at me, Brian Snyder.
Actually, I feel like I did get up and kind of look out the like the peephole, and like I was like, oh fuck.
You're like, hi.
I was literally like afraid the next thing I was gonna see was like the lock turn. Like
Uh, yeah. It's funny because the way you felt, I think when you first moved to Los Gatos, probably how I felt when I first moved down to LA. You
right.
know what I mean? Like I was definitely in my comfort zone up in San Francisco. You know what I mean? I had all
Yeah.
these people I had met, but LA was like, I think you were it. You were like my only friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So thank you, I guess, for being like my connection, to the outside world.
Thank you. I don't. I probably wasn't the best friend at that time, just because that was a huge transition in my eyesight, and so I think I was very scared at that time, and and that's why I went into the adult film industry, is because I was scared. I didn't know what to do, and so you were witnessing me being at my most fearful, I guess. So.
Oh, that's why you got into the adult film industry. So
No, I'm serious. It was. It was
it
like
wasn't perhaps to meet hot porn stars.
well, I mean, that was at the time that was probably a byproduct of that.
That was just a perk. Yeah.
But what it was is it was me going, all I have is this acting degree and this master's degree in directing. What am I going to fucking do with it? I'm losing my eyesight. I don't have much time to make it in the mainstream. There's no fucking way. And I'm like, how can I make a living? And I just got really scared. And that was really it.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't really give a shit at the time because I'm like, I was like, I had just seen HBO's documentary Pornocopia, where everybody's like, everybody in those that series was like, porn's great. You make money, you get the fuck all the time. There's no downside to this at all, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
And so I was like, wow, this everybody seems to like it. And then when you get into it, then you really see what happens, and the
Mhm.
sadness and all that. So
We
um
we we did preface, we did say mention that you were just a writer, right? I just want to make
w-
it clear for all of the listeners out
yeah,
there.
I was not a performer. And yeah, I was a project manager for the company, and I also I wrote Pirates 1 and
Right.
Pirates 2, Stagnetti's Revenge. And yeah, and so
Do you still get royalties? Do you get royalties for that?
no, 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 no.
Okay.
There's no royalties in porn. All of the money, the performers really don't make that much money, and all of it goes to the owners of the companies, which is
Oh.
now owned. I mean, pretty much all of the websites are owned by one company,
Hmm.
and so which is weird, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, things have
monopolistic.
changed. Yeah, changed a lot. So,
Yeah, no, I remember when you told me you were doing that, I was just like, oh, okay, you're writing for porn. You're but I actually respected you because you didn't care. And I was just like, good for you, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the hell with like society and society's norms and expectations. I'm like, go for it. You know what I mean?
well,
It was
what it really was is
refreshing.
what it was is when I first I was not like super excited when I was doing it. I told my mother and she was kind of okay with it. She didn't have a major issue, but I told my father and he was furious. I mean, he was just like fucking angry and he was just like, "Are you trying to fucking kill me? Why are you doing
Oh,
this? You know, you moron." You
yeah,
know, it was just like, and it made me really angry because what I needed to hear from him was, "Son, do you really want to do this? Is this something that
right.
you really feel like, is this the best decision?" But
Hmm.
instead, it was all about him and his feelings. And I was like, fuck you,
Yeah.
like, and it made me really want to get into it more because I'm like, all I want is some fucking support because I'm
Hmm.
losing my eyesight and I don't know what to fucking
Yeah.
do, you know?
Yeah.
And so he just,
Huh.
I'm not blaming him because it was my decision, but it didn't help.
Well, you know what the funny thing is? It's like his reaction was as if you were actually acting in these movies and performing.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I told him, I said that I'm not performing, and he just
yeah,
didn't
I'm
care.
not
But I
actually
think
in it.
he comes from a different time, I mean, one of the reasons I was surprised that he was upset was, he hung out with Lenny Bruce. He was friends with Lenny Bruce, and like he was a
Oh wow.
comedian, you
Huh.
know. And I think his vision of the porn industry was all mafia, like because
Mm,
he was kind of, he was kind of in that world because he was in Las Vegas, and that
mhm,
was at that time Las Vegas was owned by the mob, so
mhm,
it was a
mm,
different thing. So it was a different time,
mhm.
and um, so I think he had a different perception of what porn was,
Huh. Ye-
you know.
It would seem like back in his day, like his age, like it would be a lot more tame. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I think it was, I don't know. It was a lot more. There was a lot more stigma around it, in the
oh, I see.
'60s and the
I see.
'70s. So it was a lot more. I mean, it was seedier in
Right.
the sense that, like, in order to watch porn, you had to go to a theater, and
Right.
dudes were jacking off.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's what he was thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes more sense. Like you're like, no, 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 no. People just stay home, like in the privacy of their own home. And
Yeah, yeah,
in
and it
fact, they have
wasn't.
documentaries on HBO.
Yeah, I mean, it became more corporate, when I mean, I think it was more, it was the height of like the trying to make it mainstream. That's what
Yeah, for
Pirates was
sure.
really about, was trying to make it because we had a blockbuster version of Pirates. And so the idea was
Mhm.
trying to make porn more mainstream, but I still think it was just impossible,
Course. You
um,
can't. They kind of tried doing that, or at least it seemed like they were attempting to do that with that movie Caligula back in the was it
yeah,
late
yeah, I
'70s, early
think
'80s.
there were attempts.
Yeah,
I think that
but
was like late '60s, '70s though, wasn't it?
I want to say '70s because it was
Yeah.
Malcolm McDowell
Yeah.
starred in it. But either way, yeah, I remember it was completely produced by Penthouse,
Yeah.
and and I remember I loved the movie when I was a kid. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, but I just feel like yeah, it'll never actually happen. And why should it? Why do mainstream audiences need to be exposed to like people just having sex, like for the hell of it, you
Yeah, I
know?
mean, it's getting, I mean, the next thing is, virtual reality and augmented reality and like all of that. So who knows where it's going to go? I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's
Mm.
it's weird. But
It's funny
um
though. You actually hit the nail on the head though. I think that was the peak of its like commercialization with the whole Pirates of the Caribbean
yeah, I mean it
knockoff.
was
You know what I mean?
because pirates, and I remember reading, like, it was all over the news. Like, there were like screenings of pirates at colleges and people getting in trouble
Really?
for screening it,
Really?
like all
Wow.
over the US. Like I remember Carnegie Mellon
Huh.
had an issue, UC Davis, like all. I mean, I would read. My boss would send them to me.
He's like,
And
you're
I was
like,
like,
this is
wow,
great.
this is intense. And then like I think MSNBC would constantly run um this like little documentary. Like it would be on literally at 10 o'clock like every day about the porn industry, which featured
Hmm.
pirates and things
Okay.
like that. So I
Huh.
remember that was like around 2010, something like that.
Huh.
But anyway, so I wanted to go back. So what happened after LA?
Well, I'm still here. I'm in LA.
Oh, I guess so. LA is still happening. Yes.
We're in Los Angeles. We're
Right.
have a family. Yeah, no, we're it's great. I mean, honestly, uh I came down here to act initially, not in porn, but in actual real, commercials, movies.
Did you think about
Uh
it though? Did you ever think I should be in
no,
porn?
no way, of course not. No, no. In fact, I
Really?
was going to say, like, now instead of these like documentaries about how porn is becoming mainstream, now you have documentaries about like after the porn. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Where
After porn ends, there's like three of them.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And they're so sad. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, because you see these washed up porn stars just kind of lamenting their fate, and
Oh,
so
and
God.
Janine is in one of them, who was married to Jesse James.
Oh, okay.
James, yeah.
Yeah.
And I met her because she was in Pirates, and I remember we were on a photo shoot, and it was just photos for the movie, like promotional photos.
Hmm.
And I remember it was the photographer and myself, and I remember like I was just there, assisting, and she like turned to the photographer who was also my boss and was like, "Can you get him, meaning me, out of here? He's really creepy." And I was like,
Oh, not
okay.
gonna butt me.
And he like turned it. He had his, he was behind the camera. So he kind of like turned and, like the camera, like he's looking at the camera through here. And he kind of turned and looked at me and like laughed.
Yeah.
And like, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll go wait in the house if you need me.
Yeah.
But I think she was going through a difficult time. And I think I was just there. And it was the easiest way to externalize her pain or anger, you know? And so
Maybe you just looked really creepy. I don't know.
I hope not,
Were
but maybe
you
maybe I
doing
do.
anything unseemly that
No, no, no. I
okay,
mean,
good.
no, I was not. I was literally standing there with my arms crossed, fully
Going,
clothed.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
I
right.
was not going, yeah, no. I was not. No,
Give
I
it to
was
her.
I was shocked because I'm like, what am I doing? I'm just standing here, It was like
Right.
literally. And it was the oddest because I felt bad. I was like, why do I come across as creepy? And I'm like,
No.
and
You
but
probably looked so normal and she wasn't used to seeing someone so normal like on
maybe
set.
that was it, because
You know what I mean?
I did have some instances with talking with actors and actresses um and there was some like intense kind of stuff happen. I mean, I'm just talking about sharing life experiences and things like that. I mean, there was a lot of, for whatever reason, people would tell me their story. And
Mm.
and so I learned a lot. And some of it was very, tragic. And some of it was, so maybe you're right. Maybe I just didn't, I wasn't, you know, because I wasn't emanating like sexual energy,
Yeah. You
maybe that
obviously,
was why.
yeah.
I
People
don't know.
either
I don't
felt
know,
that they
but
could pour their hearts out to you, or they thought like, or you looked suspect because you were like
maybe. Yeah.
outside of their world in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. But
Um, but
so,
yeah, no, I just to finish up with what I was saying. So yeah, no, I moved down to LA just to act. And honestly, I gave it like a year and I just realized that it wasn't for me. I wanted to get a steady job. You know what I
right.
mean? I wanted like a real paycheck. I'd been doing the whole acting modeling thing for God, probably 6 years at least.
Hmm.
Um, and so I got a job in broadcasting, and Gina, she wasn't my wife then, but she is now. She joined me in LA,
Hmm.
and yeah, we've been basically living down here ever since. And like I said, just now had a daughter. So we're
How,
actually a
how
full-fledged
did you
family.
meet?
Gina and I, so we met at a club in San Francisco called Ruby Sky. Yeah, okay.
Is that what the music
Did
sounded
you
like?
mean to go like, is that what
Yeah.
you're doing?
What did it sound like?
Okay. It sounded like you were gagging or coughing or doing your best impression of a gorilla. I don't
Oh, I'm
know.
sorry. I'm sorry. I had to work on that. I'll work on my uh
Yeah,
my house music.
it was very breathy. Like,
All
I'm like, are you okay?
right, I'm sorry. So you met in a club. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we met, and it was a big club, and it was that type of club, the like techno, but yeah, we met there. I asked her for a number. We were dancing. I asked her for her number, and she wouldn't give it to me. So I gave her my number, and she
Right.
called me up like literally a month later, and you know, this was in my, whatever. To me, she was beautiful, but she was just like another girl, like who was just trying to date. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so yeah, honestly, we just kind of like our first date didn't really go that well. I was way too arrogant and cocky and just
Mhm.
full of myself. And but luckily she gave me another chance, and we just kept on seeing each other. And then she honestly, and she'll say the same, she kind of became obsessed with me, and started calling me every day and just nonstop. And
You're
again,
like, yeah, it's pretty normal. Most women do become obsessed with me.
no, I wish I could. No, I don't wish that happened. But I was like, dating. We are dating other people too. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so I would get calls from her while I'm still kind of seeing this other girl, and it was very awkward. And one day, Gina just shows up on my doorstep, on my
Mhm.
apartment with her suitcases behind her, and just telling me that she needs a place to stay and she's moving in. It's like, and I thought it'd be like for a few days, a week at the
Mhm.
most. But speaking of going through hard times, like she was definitely going through a hard time, and so
Mhm.
I essentially kind of took care of her, which is
Mhm.
really odd because I could barely take care of myself at that point.
Mhm.
But we just kind of, I think, bonded through that. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
you're living with someone, kind of just being there for them, and then yeah, yeah, and then we just continued to date up in San Francisco. You
Mhm.
know, it was rocky too. We had a really rough start for the
Mhm.
first like couple of years, and but I eventually moved down to LA, realized that I couldn't live without her, and then
Mhm.
she said the same and moved down here with me. And I want to say literally 8 to 10 years, 8 years later, we got married. Okay,
Oh
so
wow. So
yeah, we were like,
how long have you been together?
so I would say it's been 15 years, maybe
Congratulations, man.
16.
That's great.
Thank you.
What is the
Thank you.
secret?
Um,
I'm asking because I need to know. What is the secret to longevity in a marriage?
Honestly, forgiveness. I
Okay.
think that's how it's worked with us, because I think too many people just give up. They
Yeah.
get into these horrible fights and they give up. And honestly, obviously if it's abusive, that's one thing, but couples fight. Couples get into really bad fights. We've gotten into some of the worst, and but we always manage to kind of just forgive. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And it was even when it wasn't easy. And I just feel like a lot of times people just are just too willing to walk away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're just like, well, that's it. I give up. You know, and I think that at least that's also just going through like, just the worst together. Sometimes like you have to really, really get down deep into the like, the worst times in your life to finally to kind of like see that if you can survive that, you can survive anything. You know what I mean? If we've been through the worst in our relationship, well then we can pretty much do anything. And so that's helped. So we've definitely had our ups and downs, but I think honestly it's made us stronger as a couple.
Well, I'm very happy for you, man.
Thank you.
It,
I'm
rem-
happy
it
for
rem-
you guys.
Thank you. It
Yeah,
reminds me, Bishop Desmond Tutu wrote a book called, I believe the title is "There Is No Future Without Forgiveness."
I could see that. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, you know, turn the other cheek. It's been there since the dawn of time, right? But I just feel like if she and I had given up, like, I mean, we'd never be here today, and I'd probably still be looking for someone, you know, maybe that, who knows? I don't know. Who knows what would have happened? But I mean, I'm happy now, and we have a beautiful daughter together, and we have a really good life that I don't think, if I had just thrown in the towel or she had thrown in the towel, like, I don't think we'd be in the same place where we are
Right.
now. You know what I mean? It's hard to keep starting over. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you, man. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So you're writing. What's going on there?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I've been, I write, it's more of like a hobby, but, I write fiction, short stories, and I'm actually working on a novel right now,
Hmm.
which I was just able to get back into after like this crazy year of having a pandemic, and then, having a pregnant wife, and just everything. It seemed like the world turned upside down
Yeah.
over the past year. So I'm now just able to get back into writing, but I basically write like, horror fiction. It's just something I do just to keep my, this is my outlet. So,
Well, I that brings back a memory because I remember you would read a lot of Stephen King. I remember you were reading that in
mhm.
like seventh, eighth grade, and you loved horror movies. And I remember, um, I remember we were watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and we
Yes.
had just finished watching it, and I don't know why, but you said let's go take a walk or something like that, and this is like 11 o'clock at night,
Mhm.
and and you're like, let's go take a walk, and then we like went down this trail by your house in the total darkness, and I
Mhm.
just remember walking, and then I heard
I remember doing that, and I remember doing my best to make it sound as realistic as possible. Now
yeah,
that I
yeah, I
think
mean,
about it, I should have just like put a chainsaw, like planted a chainsaw out there. You know what I
oh
mean?
god, that I
Just
probably
so
literally would have like soiled myself. That would have been horrible, dude.
oh
That
my
would have been the
god,
worst. I mean,
that
just
would
you
have been worth
making
it.
the noise verbally was enough for me.
And it's funny too, because I was just joking. I didn't think like you'd really take it seriously at all, but I guess it really did scare you. It made an
Yeah,
impact.
I mean, I have a history with horror movies. I remember, I mean, I wasn't really into them that much, and I think it was because when I was little, I mean, I'm talking like 5 or 6 or something like that. My brother had this like coffee table book of like horror movies, and
Mm,
there was some like really graphic, like horrible like images in it that
mm,
like I still remember to this day that like scare the shit out of me.
yeah.
And it's kind of haunted me, and I used to have nightmares all the time,
Mm.
about that stuff, about Dracula, or some monster coming into my room and eating me or something.
Oh yeah,
uh
I used to have dreams about Freddy Krueger, which is
yeah,
very it's frightening when like considering the whole premise of those movies.
yeah, it's true, because I had the same thing. Like, I remember seeing Freddy, like, and I remember like falling asleep and then seeing his face like next to me,
Hmm,
and like,
that's disgusting.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I had a
Turn
lot of
over.
those
That's
kind
Freddy.
of, yeah. But
Yeah, I mean, it's funny what our parents, at least what my parents allowed me to watch. You know what I mean? Because my mom and my sister were both fans of Stephen King. Sorry, my dog just heard the mailman.
okay.
So yeah, my mom and sister were both big fans of Stephen King, the books and the movies, and so I was just watching them like from a young age, probably from like 6, 7 years old. So I was just like, oh, Children of the Corn. Oh, this sounds lovely. There's children playing in the corn and holding hands, and I remember that movie specifically having a big impact and just scaring the hell out of me. Just
Yeah,
watching kids slaughter adults in just the
that's
most gruesome
weird.
ways possible.
and
Yeah,
horrifying.
yeah. But honestly, like,
Do you think, I mean,
uh,
do you think being exposed to that did something to you, like in a like a harmful way?
I don't. It's so hard to tell. I mean, if I were a psychologist, maybe I'd be able to break it down a bit more. But I don't think it was harmful. I think if um, anything, it obviously influenced, what I enjoy today. I enjoy writing
Right.
horror. I still enjoy horror movies. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I think just, I mean, I was never violent. I was not a violent kid,
Right.
except when I was, you know, in
Except in
Paris,
Paris.
drunk and off my ass. But I blame alcohol for that,
Okay. Right.
and mistaken identities. Um, no, I don't really see it as a harmful thing. Um, I don't know, but I would love to. It would be interesting to actually speak, with a therapist and see what they say.
I'll tell you one thing though that really kind of lightened it all for me. You
Mhm.
probably remember this. So we were watching Hellraiser, and do
Yeah,
you remember at the beginning of it, there was like this infomercial for like get your Hellraiser T-shirt,
yeah, so corny.
and I remember we just made fun of that because it was so fucking ridiculous and like
Yeah,
blatant marketing, like get
right,
your
right.
Hellraiser coffee mug.
Oh yeah, they were really trying to push. They were trying to commercialize him as much as possible,
Yeah.
make him into the next Freddy.
Right. Right.
But yeah, no, it's funny. Those movies specifically, the Hellraiser ones, are like those are just gross now. You know what I mean? Like that's I don't like horror movies that aren't scary. You know what I mean? Like the whole Saw movies.
Mhm.
Nah, never,
What about the
never.
Blair Witch? What'd you think of the Blair Witch?
Ooh, that scared me. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a
right.
good
Because
movie.
it was all your own mind, like having to
Right.
kind of process it and
Like,
go, what is out there?
right. The
You know?
fear of the unknown. That's what's terrifying to me. When I
Yeah.
just, especially, and it must, I can't imagine the impact it would have had on other people because I did grow up in, the woods, like a house surrounded by the wilderness. So you'd think that I would be kind of immune to that kind of, fright, but no, that actually, if anything, made me even more scared. That made me scared to actually go home and visit my mom at her house. I was like, I'm not going down there. This is the woods. Who knows what's in there?
You should play the Shining theme as you're driving.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know. That was a good one. I remember Nicholson. Can you believe that Stephen King actually hates that adaptation? Like he's still to this day he thinks that's one of the worst adaptations of his books.
The Stanley Kubrick version of The Shining?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. He's just vehemently, opposed to that movie even being in existence. Yeah.
Really? That's amazing. I don't know. I mean, I'd be interesting to know why, but I mean, that has some,
Classic. That was
some, what?
no, I was just going to say some shocking, terrifying scenes, right?
Yeah, and I mean, even like a couple years ago, I mean, I don't have a lot of vivid dreams anymore, but I had one about being at the Overlook Hotel and like and being on its grounds and in the maze, and like it was so vivid. And this was just a couple of years ago. And
Oh,
I actually wrote it down because it was so vivid and strange, and it kind of like I think it was like paralleling my sense of like my own feelings of rage and anger, and like you know um it's kind of interesting because Jack Torrance wants to be a writer and he can't do it, and like and as I was kind of like I want to be a performer and comedian, I'm stuck, and like
mhm.
and so I think it was paralleling that to some degree.
I can see that. I can see that feeling of
You're
being
like, yes, I can
lost,
see that
helpless.
you could lose your mind and murder everybody.
Hey, who couldn't?
Who
We all have
couldn't?
it in us. If if civilization, broke down, and all of a sudden there was no law and order.
Mhm.
I mean, how long do you think it would really take for people just to like kind of devolve into complete total savagery, and just I don't think we're as far away from it as we like to believe.
I agree with you, but I also think that some of the most compassionate and empathetic things would come from it too. I think there would be both. It would be probably horrifying violence and also, profound love and compassion simultaneously happening.
Wow, I could see that happening, but then those compassionate, loving people would just get killed off by all the savage cannibals, and so like, they get killed
Maybe.
off and eaten right away.
So
Uh,
this leads us into, since we're talking about the future, I mean, what would
that's
you
the
say
future.
if you're
God,
talking? What did you say?
I would say that's the future. God.
No, no, no. But I was going to say, like, I was going to say, because what if Julia had watches this 20 years from now, if there's YouTube?
Okay.
What would you say to her? What would you
Oh,
want her to know
oh,
right
really? You're
now?
gonna put me on the spot right now
Is
like
that too
that?
awkward? Because I don't want to make things too awkward. If it's too awkward, it's okay.
It's a little awkward. It feels too much like Tony
Too
Stark in
contrived.
the Avengers, like
I
giving
have a
that one
message for you.
last note. Yeah, I have a message for you for when you grow up.
Right.
I'm just a hologram, Julie. I'm not actually here. I died killing. I died. Saving the world. No. No.
You don't have
Yeah.
to answer. I just thought that I'd take it. If you're into it, we could go there, but it's okay if you're not. It's all right.
That's sweet. It's okay. I'll give her my love letter. At some point in the future. But obviously, see, this feels weird because when I feel like if I was talking to her, but I'm actually talking to you, so it's really strange.
You're talking to a 43-year-old bearded blind man. Okay.
But yeah, exactly. But I'm thinking about my 10-month-old daughter.
Right.
The
Well,
confluence.
listen, man. I'm deeply grateful for this conversation. It brought back a lot of memories, and it made me appreciate friendship. And I know you and I have been through a lot. We've had a lot of ups and downs. And like I didn't mention this time, but I tried to mention it the first time we tried this. But um, I I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? Um, well, first of all, like I think I said it in the beginning, like you saved me. Like you really did, because I wouldn't have, I don't know what I would have done without your friendship and help me to make that transition to enjoying where, living there in Los Gatos, and having a life there, because I almost, I didn't make it. And it means a lot to me that that we were able to meet, and to experience the things we did, because we were both kind of clinging to each other in a storm, like
Mm,
trying to survive in a very competitive environment, and where the economic elite children were playing.
mm.
And so I didn't get to say what I originally wanted to say, but I just wanted to thank you for this, because
Oh,
it's I'm grateful that we have this conversation and it's recorded, and that uh, as long as YouTube's here, we'll have it.
yeah. Hey, that's great. I know. That's one nice thing about the whole technology revolution and social media that like, for these types of moments, they can be saved and archived. So that's
Yeah,
kind of
and
cool. Little time
and I
capsule.
and I thank you for sharing, the things you did, and the vulnerable moments, and it means a lot to me. And
Oh,
I love you, buddy, and I appreciate everything, man.
oh, well, thank you. Same to you. And I guess since you did put me on the spot, I do have to give a shout out to my daughter because maybe she will watch this in 20, 30 years, and maybe I'll be so old and decrepit that I won't even be able to, you know, form these words in the first place. Um, Julia, even though you look like a bearded 42-year-old man with sunglasses, I love you very much. And hopefully I'm still alive to tell this to you in person. But I didn't die saving the world. I didn't die defeating Thanos in the Avengers, but I'm just an ordinary guy who loves you very much. And that's all I have to say. Okay, thank you. Now, please continue.
No, but you know what else? Julia, he saved me. He saved me when I needed it most, and for that I will always be grateful, because sometimes that's all we can do is help save some, give somebody some hope, and comfort and peace and kindness. So, and you did that,
Well,
and
thanks,
I
man.
thank you for that.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right,
Thank you for
man.
being
Well,
there.
here's what I'd love to do. When you finish your book, I would love to do this again, and we can
Sure.
talk about your book. And I hope that you'll allow me to be part of your promotional circuit.
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. You'll be the first on my list.
All right, man. All right. I love you, and please give my best to Gina and Julia, and congratulations on the life that you've created. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope to talk to you soon.
All right, man.
All right.
We're gonna have our awkward ending now, and
Awkward
let's
ending.
see how awkward this gets because sometimes I can't turn this off, but we'll see.
Okay. Here we go. So long, everybody.
There we go.
Okay.
Awkward.
And